in the next 10 to 12 years approximately 86 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the #2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being #2. You're going to go down and become #4. Now, common sense, even a third grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were #2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become #4. And the worst part about it is as you descend and go down to #4, those other groups are going to go up. And as they go past you, you're going to have major racial clashes in this country. You're going to have fights all over this country between blacks and Hispanics, blacks and Asians, blacks and poor whites. And black folk cannot fight all these groups. Everybody can not always be against black folk. They know that we are vulnerable and we are defenseless.
All right, let's get right to it. So I talk about a lot of things, right, on my channels, and I explain why certain white demographics are anti-government, right? Where they, and when I say government, you got to be really specific when you say government. For those who study government, there's a big difference between the federal government, which is also called the national government, and from just state governments. There's 50 states, and each state has their government, and each state acts like a country. They act like a country. The governor is the president, basically, and so on and so forth. So there's something called federalism, right? And federalism explains what the federal government how it can get involved in state affairs. And it also explains when it can't. And that's just it, right? So, of course, Fed law supersedes state law. And as long as the state laws are not violating federal law, the federal government normally doesn't step in and mess with the states, right? Okay, so on my channel, I've been talking about FBAs, right, a lot. And I say that we are in a bucket, okay? We're in a bucket. And you got two sides of white America that's feeding us information for their own benefit. So you got the conservative side, which is known as Republicans, and you have the liberal side, which is known as the Democrats. Both of them are feeding us information. Both of their information is truth mixed with falsehood. That's why we have to, unfortunately, become scholars or try to find those who try to become scholars, you dig, to properly disseminate and discern what is truth from nonsense. Now, I say all this to say, a lot of you parrot liberal talking points and don't know it, because again, they're mixing truth with falsehood. A lot of you parrot conservative talking points and don't know it, because again, they mix truth with falsehood. So there's a little bit of truth in what you're saying, but a lot of it is extreme or just misinformation. So Republicans like to do misinformation as far as my research goes. Uh, and Democrats like to control your mind. All right. So there's a reason why Republicans are anti-federal government. They're not anti-state government, because there are Republican states and they love their state government. They love their state laws, their state police and state policies and things like that. So don't get it twisted. All right. So Dr. Claude is going to go into that right now. All right. And I'm going to try to let as much play as possible without me stepping in, because he's going to drop a lot of good information on why the right wing, right? The right wing extremists, white supremacists, whoever. He's going to explain why they are anti-federal government, which I was saying, of course, he said it way longer than me, because this video is like 2001. But since he's been like away from the scene, I've been like trying to pick up that torch and try to show y'all, hey, be careful. Some of the things you're saying is right, and some of it is literally right-wing extreme talking points, and it's BS. And vice versa. Some of us be talking about liberal stuff, and it'd be left-wing extreme, garbage as well. So we're in a tough position, right? So you got a lot of fake news right now on the media, right? ICE this, ICE that. Sometimes conservative media might hide some things, and sometimes liberal media might add some things. So it's good to come to channels like this, not only this, because there's other channels, but my name is Unbiased Ron, and I try to separate myself from everybody else by not being biased, not holding or having a position. So sometimes I could read information and I wanted to say something and it doesn't. And I'm like, damn, but I still take it, regurgitate it over here and wherever I can. So we can learn together. Muck Peace, Original 420. All right, so let's get into Dr. Clark real quick.
When my people don't own anything and you own 100%, what have I got to conserve? When you hear blacks going around screaming about they're a black conservative, you ask them, what are you conserving? Tell me one point in history that you found something that you want to conserve.
So you have a lot of black conservatives. And notice why when black conservatives go why when blacks go conservative, they be worse than white supremacists with their talking points in denial and delusion.
Don't let people run that game on you about being a conservative. You tell them, say, fine, if you want to tell me, what are you conserving? And when my people never had anything, why would they want to be a conservative?
So let me just add to that. So conserve means to withhold. So this is why, a lot of Republican leaders, especially president, want to cut back on things, you see, because they're conserving. So because they think there's too much spending. I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just saying they're holding back on things and withholding things. They're always cutting things. You did. All right. So they cut, and we wish they would cut the check, but they cut, and a lot of liberals would add things. So sometimes conservatives cut things we actually need, and sometimes liberals add things that we don't need. Again, for their own gain, of course, their own party gain. That's why I say we're in a tough position. We're in the middle, watching these two fight while we duck. You dig?
So the biggest problem we're going to have is conservatism when it goes across this nation.
Shabbat shalom.
And we as black folk got to understand, now it's not all whites that are conservatives. There is an element that's got everything, that want to make that it's the greed over need, that want to hold on to everything. And so, we're going to have a massive flow. Everybody's going to be talking about conservatism. You're going to see people politically switching, talking about they're moving to the far right.
Now keep in mind, this is 2001. This is 24 years ago. This is a prediction, prophecy, however you want to label it.
And what we have to do is understand
Jesse
that,
Parrish.
and that's going to create major
Yep,
problems in
he
this
warned
country.
us.
One, you're going to not only see an increasing amount of negative hostility towards black folk, every
Let me
piece of
get, hey Jesse,
research
I'm
in
gonna
the
add you a
country
wrench
tells us
here,
that,
just like the
even
video.
from the
Everybody
Jewish
like the video.
organizations,
Please, as soon as you
that
come
you're
in,
going to see
like that
more
video.
anti-blackness now and in the future than you've ever seen in the last 60 years since you left the civil rights movement.
You heard that? There's gonna be more anti-blackness now you ever seen, and we're seeing it. Everybody's against us. Everybody. When I say everybody, that's why I got the videos, the lives. FBA versus everyone. We see folks who look black coming at us. You got Latinos blaming us because they can't deal with ICE. So they're blaming us for not fighting with them. So everybody's attacking us. And Tariq Nasheed had a video. I didn't watch it just yet, but Charlie Kirk supposedly blamed us for the flood in Texas. I'm definitely gonna watch that one. I got to catch up.
Two, we see organizations all over the country now.
The white peace.
Paramilitary groups, Aryan
Yes,
groups,
yes, yes,
Vipers,
yes.
Freeman, Skinhead, Baldhead, all kind of groups that are organizing. And
notice he didn't say the black immigrant, because this was, I think that wasn't foreseen. That's why we're all caught off guard. I don't think any of us at this time. Now it was seen 3 years later with the Obama administration. Well, I'm sorry, not administration. When Obama decided to run for presidency, that's when we start to see like, oh, wow, people who look like us are against us. So maybe they're not like us as we thought.
Optimistically expecting and anticipating a major clash in this country between blacks and whites. We've had 28 states in the United States now to pass concealed weapons laws. That's specifically so some of the white contingency groups can carry weapons and arms at all times. That's why you have such a major thrust from the National Rifle Association. That's why they're controlling most of your politicians. That's why you have such a major anti-governmental effort in this country. You hear people say, we want to go back to states' rights. We're anti-government. We want to get rid of the federal government. It's not that they're against government. They know that in history, the only people who've ever saved black.
Okay, you see that? So I got to stop right there. So when people be against government is normally the conservatives, the right wing, and the right wing extremists, far right, white supremacists. And he's going to explain what it's about. It's not that they're really against government. And again, I've been saying this on my channel for many, many years. Listen.
They're against government. They know that in history, the only people who've ever saved black folk has been the government, twice, the federal government. And if you eliminate the federal government by downsizing the government, black folk no longer have an ally. And if a clash occurs, you got nobody to come to the rescue a third time.
You hear that? So don't forget, the government stepped in with the Civil War, right? The Union, you could say government, whatever. The Union went in there, and all of a sudden we're emancipated. Then we got birthright citizenship, right? Another type of voting rights and things like that. And then guess what? The states instituted, not the government, the states instituted Jim Crow laws. All right. Then there was HOLC. No. It was the zoning laws. I'm sorry. It was the zoning laws, the early zoning laws that kept black people from moving to better society. So that's why when people say the hood, like we should really look at that word as taboo and disassociate ourselves with it, because the hood ain't something we created. And you'll hear like scholars talk about that. You even hear Tariq talk about that. That's not something we created. The hood is something white supremacy created, right? Systemic racism created, because it wouldn't let us move out and do better. We had money, but we were not allowed to express our money with a better lively condition for our family. So they had zoning laws that kept us marginalized in the hood. So we're living with people our own, right? The poor, the middle, and the upper. Like that's never happened. When the upper is the upper, they usually, branch out and live like an upper person. So the zoning laws. Now the zoning laws were struck down in 1917. I wish this bright over here. Struck down 1917. All right. So as unconstitutional because that was a state law. So again, listen to what I'm saying. State law, state law, state law, unconstitutional, unconstitutional, unconstitutional. So they came up with, so right after that, they came up with restrictive covenants. So everything I'm saying, you should just research it. Just go research zoning laws of the early 1900s and then research restrictive covenants because that came later. So now what was restrictive covenants? That was a rule that wasn't on the books. White society just agreed to not sell to black people. And guess what? They put it in the deeds. They put it in the deeds as a condition and as a term that if you bought this house, you cannot sell it to anybody black. So those were restrictive covenant laws that were under the books. All right. So that's state laws. So of course we got the civil rights movement where the federal government stepped in again. So that's the two times he's talking about. And it outlawed and it legalized Jim Crow. All right. And that pissed them off because they were having fun depriving us from programs, assistance, and even just better opportunities. Redlining, no bank loans and things like that, no business loans, no type of assistance that every other American were afforded. So white folks had the average white folk had 100-year head start. The elite white folks had a 400 plus head start over us. All right, why is this mouse not working? That's pissing me off.
Time to help you. You see, you were pulled out of slavery by the federal government. You were pulled out of Jim Crowism by the federal government. There are contingencies in the country that says the next time there won't be a federal government to pull blacks out. And you hear them talk about their anti-government. That's what they're talking about. They're not against government.
Nope.
And later on you hear me tell about why they're not against government. Because you see, primary wealth in this country, the primary responsibility of government is to move wealth and to move power. And that's how the dominant society got its wealth and its power, by using government. But now they want to make sure black folk don't have access to it.
Okay, so that's why you guys got to stop talking about welfare. So I've been giving folks a break because I understand you guys are borrowing white conservative, right-wing, extreme far-right talking points, but you don't know what you're talking about because I know you have not read the history of welfare. And anybody that think welfare was a bad thing for black people, just ask for the phone number link right now and let's have that discussion. Let's have that discussion right now. If anybody believes welfare and government assistance was the reason why black people was and is the reason why black people are not doing well, I guarantee you I will cook you in probably 2 minutes. I know you have not studied the history of welfare. And I'll leave it like that, and I'll come back and explain how welfare is a good thing. It's just, and this is why we can't get it. Like, so I know you guys think we're on welfare. We're actually not. We're actually not. It's really hard to get welfare for black people. You got to really be in a dire situation, but that's not the case for everybody else. They're getting welfare and they're not in a dire situation. And then why did they do welfare reform to make it harder to get when we were finally when it was finally accessible to us? They made it harder to get, and then they made it harder to stay on. Those rules were not there when white folks would afford. When welfare was afforded to white folks only and exclusively. And this is at the time where the Italians became white, so they could also be tagged onto welfare because without being white, you were not getting welfare or any government assistance to level up. Don't forget, keep in mind that we were coming out of the Great Depression, so everybody was broke and everybody was in need of assistance. So that's why you got the 1933 HOLC, the 1934 FHA, the 1935 New Deal, and then the 1944 GI Bill. You see all these 1930, and so all after the Great Depression, 1929. So they're giving assistance to white people to help them level up, and then they extended the extension to the whites who they never consider white, like the Irish. Just to name a few, right? So like, be careful repeating like talking points from like liberals who hate you or conservatives who hate you. Like, just come to channels like this that can properly discern good from bad, what's historical correct, and know some context in between. And Dr. Claude, watch his videos. He does a great job of giving you that same discernment. All right.
That's why they're anti-affirmative action, but I'll get into all that a little later. But so the biggest thing, one of the biggest things that are going to drive us in this underclass structure will be conservatism. The second thing is that you're going to have an unending influx of immigrants into the country.
Jesse, wasn't forced.
And that's what Dr. Price is talking about. And nobody, no black politician, no black organization wants to deal with that issue. They will avoid it at all costs, even though in their hearts they know that's one of the biggest problems for black folk. We anticipate in the next 10 to 12 years approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the #2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being #2. You're going to go down and become #4. Now, common sense, even a third grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were #2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway.
Yeah, I had bought this DVD.
You can guess what you're going to get when you become #4. And the worst part about it is as you descend and go down to #4, those other groups are going to go up. And as they go past you, you're going to have major racial clashes in this country. You're going to have fights all over this country between blacks and Hispanics, blacks and Asians, blacks and poor whites. And black folk cannot fight all these groups. Everybody can not always be against black folk. They know that we are vulnerable and we are defenseless.
Right.
And we cannot fight.
And look, not just them, because now black immigrants, not all, but as we know, some black immigrants also realize, oh, these guys are defenseless. And that's why a lot of them are hopping on team white supremacy via conservatism, code name conservatism, or the other code name Pan-Africanist or Afrocentric. Like these are the avenues that a lot of black immigrants would join to like low key be team white supremacy without blatantly being team white supremacy. But Afrocentrics and a lot of Pan-Africanist talking points, we definitely team white supremacy. And we already know black conservatives, just Larry Sowell, Larry Elder, Thomas Sowell, Candace Owens, the list goes on. But those two groups that they normally join to be team white supremacy without blatantly being team white supremacy. But like I said, we're FBA, we're ADOS, we're American freedmen. We don't distinguish you guys. We don't delineate you guys from team white supremacy. So when you become a Pan-Africanist, Afrocentric, or a black conservative, we don't distinguish you from team white supremacy. There's no delineation. There's no disaggregation. There's no drawing a line separating you. Now y'all all together. And I'm advising you guys to look at them like that. When they say they're black conservative or this and that over here, to look at them as an informant of team white supremacy. And we're safer like that. We ain't giving nobody the benefit of the doubt when they say something like that.
Fight those groups. Because you see, they didn't come into this country with the legacies that we are stuck with. Everybody in America has an advantaged position but black folk.
American Dream. Okay, Swart, let me throw you a wrench, just like the video. American Dream. I don't know what's up with your comprehension, boy, but nothing Dr. Claude Anderson is saying about black immigrants. So I'm at to, if you're not gonna watch the video, I'm at to dismiss you from this live. All right, he's not consider. Are you that dumb? Dr. Claude Anderson was not talking about black immigrants. He was talking about immigrants, like everybody other than black, because this was the y'all issue that y'all brought to this country was not foreseen. That's why we all shocked that we got. He wasn't thinking. I don't think he was thinking immigrants and including black ones as well. He was like saying Latino, Asian, and things like that, in East Indian, but he wasn't considering all immigrants. Like we know now, it's all immigrants that can turn on us. Like the skin color don't translate to like brotherhood necessarily all the time. Yeah, but don't come in here twisting up anything, bro, because I'm about to get you out of here. Like at least repeat what you heard from the video. Don't start adding stuff and lying.
But all are in a state of denial. The white power structure in a state of denial. They are pretending that everything they got, that 100% control and ownership of everything, they got it because they worked hard through a Protestant ethic. That's not how they got it. And you always hear them say, well, what you got to do, you got to work hard. Nobody can work any harder than a slave. But they're going to keep running these games on black folk. And at the same time, we got black folk that are accepting that what we got to do is work harder.
Yep.
And you see, when we get into that in a few minutes about history, what the power structure really wants is what we call unearned income.
And they always got that. They always got unearned income. Again, I've been doing videos about that. The Homestead Act of 1862, unearned income. The HOLC. And don't forget, when they rob us, when they destroy Black Wall Street, urban renewal, that's all unearned income. The money just don't go, the money goes somewhere. It don't just disappear. It goes somewhere, you dig, to somebody's hand. And when they destroyed the Freedmen's Bank, that $78 million went somewhere. It ain't just disappear and evaporate. That went in somebody's hand. Okay. So that's that's also unearned income. And a lot of policies and programs meant for us, some fundings that other folks take advantage of that wasn't meant for them, that's also unearned income. So a lot of things that I'm doing right now as far as giving commentary, I'm updating, because this is 2001. I'm giving an updated understanding of what he's saying, because our issue today got worse and he was unaware of, again, like tethers. And you see American Dream, see, tethers like to make tether mean all Black immigrants. Okay, first of all, it's not just exclusive to Black immigrants. Tether is immigrants, period. It could be somebody from Poland, somebody from Ireland. All right, that could be a tether if their agenda is to undermine us, set us back, get in the way, get in our way, or try to speak for us when we don't want you speaking for us. Those things can classify as a tether. But tethers like American Dream, they want to, I said the other lie, they want to redefine tether to mean all Black immigrants exclusively, to confuse them, to make them believe we're striking at them, right? We're coming at them for no reason. Like, that's what those tethers do. That's why every like damn near 2 months, Tariq Nasheed does another video what tether means, like to redefine. And that's why we trademark stuff. You see why a trademark is good? Because tethers like American Dream, when they try to redefine a word, it already has a set definition. Like, no, that's not what it means. This is what it means.
Slavery was nothing but unearned income for whoever owns the slave. And once slavery ended, that's where Wall Street came from. Wall Street was based on slavery.
All right, so let me just fast forward. It's a 2-hour video. I'm not trying to play all 2 hours. You dig? But I do want to get to a point in the video. All right, let me just pause my screen real fast and maximize it so I can see. Okay, here we are. All right, I'm where I want to be. All right, here we go. Let me what's that, Mama D-Bus? Let me add a wrench, Mama. All I ask is that you like the video, and you can subscribe if you like what we're doing. Tashi, same thing, Tashi D. Thanks to Pinky. Also like the video. V4, y'all know Swarthy, y'all know, like the video, and give me a second. Like, God, I'm trying to get Tasha a wrench. Okay, there you go, Tashi, I got you a wrench. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I don't like when I'm doing a serious topic. Sometimes when we're roasting, I don't mind American Dream coming here acting a fool, but serious topics, dude, like relax. Like you don't got to tether every time.
Conservatism. The second thing is that you're going to have an unending influx of immigrants into the country.
Okay, so I replayed that. All right. So now let me get to this. Let me get to this. I gotta maximize it again. So that part we already read. Like I said, like this is an old video. This is back in 2001. All right, it's a 2001 video. It's not new, but it's crazy. 24 years later, we're seeing it all play out. All right. Let me just get the place mark where I want to be.
In CalSkin, we're going to have a procurement system in Florida.
Give me 1 second. Trying to find a place mark where I want to be.
You can't have any power and wealth doing that.
I hate when I'm talking on mute. All right, family. Okay, so I'm where I want to be right now. I said, I apologize. I was looking for something, and it kept sending me to the end of the video. But here we are. There's a couple messages. It's a 2-hour video. I don't want to play a whole 2-hour video. That's like a whole nother day. But I want to just pick spots. So he dealt with the conservatives, right, in this country, the far right, the white ring, and he explained why they're so against government, just very briefly. And I can find another part of the video where he goes in a little more. So that he dealt with immigration. Again, this immigration he's talking about, he never fathomed that Black immigrants would feel like non-Black immigrants when they come to this country. He felt like they were pretty much, I'm thinking, right? He felt like they would join up with us and do something with us, help our communities, do business with us. So immigration, now we're talking about a community, a Black community. Check this out.
I want to get away from everybody that looks like me. You can't have any power and wealth doing that. If you don't have a community, you cannot rebuild Los Angeles without a Black community. If I cannot come in this city, you can tell me where every Black lives, where he stays, where he works. You don't have a community. And all of you that want to go in business, don't waste your time. You cannot start a business and operate without a town or community.
Right.
Why can't you do it? Because without a community, you have no market.
You hear that? And this is why, folks, there's a lot of reasons why they don't want Black Americans to know their FBA. Like you just said, without a community, there's no market. So we'll never have a market, like a foundation Black American market, if we don't have foundation Black American communities. Now, what do I mean? There are some communities that are predominantly Black, foundation Black American, but it's not really, because these folks don't know they are. So they're not going to operate on code. You get what I'm saying? A real foundation Black American community is when you have a whole bunch of FBAs that know their FBA. You dig? That's when it works. So this is everybody fear with us. They don't want us getting on code in large numbers. This is why they always try to minimize, oh, a small group from Tariq Nasheed, a small group from Adolf. They try to say small group to undermine the magnitude, right? The massive numbers that we're accumulating. But once we're on code, at least half the 43 million, they know stuff is done. They know when we get to like 17, 18, 20 million people who know their FBA, ADOS, American freedmen, they know the undermining is done because we are their lifeline. They need our allegiance. They need our money. They need our protection. They need our representation. Okay, they need our culture, music. They know on some Jeezy what happens when the bulk of us, not like close to half, start to get on code. Things it's gonna get ugly and it's gonna get serious. Same day peace. Three. My screen is. I keep forgetting my damn screen, man. All right. Y'all just ignore American Dream.
If you don't have a market, every black gonna go by your store at 200 miles an hour, heading for the suburbs and heading for the malls.
I get them.
And that's why you got this major displacement of capital out of the black neighborhood. And I tell black folk, if you want to go in business today, don't do it. Give me the money. I need it. Because you're going to go bankrupt. 80% of all black folk that go into business under the present system, you will go bankrupt within 2 years. You will lose your money within 2 years because you don't have a market. And see, that's how the other groups function. They have their own markets, their own communities. And we're going to talk about that a little later on.
Are you serious, same day?
The good Reverend Dr. Price, he gave me 2 hours to talk to you all, so I'm going to get to all those points, okay?
Nah, not at all, 3M.
So we got major problem. That's the second thing, is dealing with this influx of immigrants. And what I'm telling you is that they're not coming in here to be your partner or your ally.
Oh, we know that now.
To compete with you. And your black organization and your black leadership in this country is afraid.
Wait. I want you to say that one more time.
Telling you is that they're not coming in here to be your partner or your ally. They're coming in to compete with you.
Okay, so you heard that? They're coming here to compete with us. They're not trying to be our friend, partner, business partner, things like that. They're coming to compete. That's exactly what that that's exactly what bro. Hey, American Dream, let me get you out of here, bro. There's not a lot of y'all over here, man. All right? Fuck this guy. I'm gonna block you just for today. Like, you do acting like he's acting like they are the same number as us. Dude, y'all are here in small numbers. Stop it. Pissing me off, man.
And your black organization and your black leadership in this country is afraid to teach black folk how to compete with all these other groups. And they're afraid because
so again, what he did not know, what he couldn't foresee is that those immigrants were going to be black also. And they didn't come here to be business partners either. That's why I played you the videos of that Jamaican lady saying, hey, what you guys don't, the Jamaican lady said this about us. She said, what you FBAs don't understand is that we're not one with you. You guys are black power, black rights, black this, black that. We're not. She said, we are immigration rights, immigration power, and things like that. She said, that's y'all confusing. Yeah, look at us because we're dark like you, but we have different political views, different ways we deal with America. Different reasons why we're here. We're not here to join black fights. We're here to join the immigration fight. So they're tuned in to the immigration and the ICE things. We're not. Okay, we're not tuned into the riot scene. Like, we'll catch it here and there, but they got their eyes peeled to that TV screen because they think it's gonna be them next. Okay.
Because they keep trying to create allies with them. You cannot ally with anybody who's planning on supplanting you. You see, if you go check the Council of La Raza, you check the Council of Salala, if you check the National Hispanic Defense League, if you check the National Hispanic Party, the first thing that all of them have is to change the issues in this country from white and black to white and Hispanic. They're planning on supplanting you. When the National Hispanic Party started in Miami in 1974, I was in the governor's office there. I was the only black in politics. That was the first item on their agenda, saying by the year 2000, they want to take blacks out of the equation. And that's why, as Dr. Price just said, that's why they control South Florida. They play to win. We play to play. Okay? And when I leave here today, I want you all forevermore in helping Dr. Price to play to win. Okay? The third thing that's going to hurt us and push us into this underclass structure is technology. You got blacks running all over the country telling black folks, some people, well, what we're going to do, we can overcome racism, we get involved in technology. Won't happen. Technology has never been a friend and ally of black folk. It has always been our worst enemy. Why has it been? Because you see, racism has always kept us in our place. And technology has always come along and run over that place. That's why technology has always been our enemy. See, when you keep a black man as the porter, then all of a sudden you come along with a floor sander, he's gone. You keep him as the elevator operator and you put a computer in the elevator. You keep him as a dishwasher and you get an automatic dishwasher. You all understand what I'm telling you? So when black people come to you telling you, well, you get technology, no. You say, no. What we have to do is to get control of, get behind technology so to stop running over us. And I got friends in Washington, D.C. going all over this country telling black folk, you got to get into the information highway. And you can overcome racism. Whites were not that dumb. You cannot get on the information highway and overcome racism. Because the information highway is like any other highway. It's a transportation system. And what you should be asking yourself is, what are you transporting? If you don't have anything to transport, you can't get on the information highway. So what we got to be talking about as black folk is owning and controlling. It's just like when they invented the highway, the airplane system, the shipping system, the train system. It didn't advantage black folk because we never owned the trains, the planes, and the ships. What we got to do right now, starting with your church, is try to figure out how we can own and control more. Then the highway makes sense to us. Okay? Now, and that's why right now in Washington, D.C., the Office of Technology's last report says that the people going to be hurt most by technology are going to be black folk. And a fellow named Jeremy Rickman has a book out called The End of Work. And he is the director of the National Economic Trends for Washington, D.C. and nationally. He's the guy to put out these trends. He put a book out, and his book, Chapter 5, talks about what technology is going to do to people, and he uses black folk as an example. And I went and sat down and talked with him. And what he says to Dr. Anderson, he said, my publishers tried to make me take that chapter out of the book. He said, I fought to keep it in. He said, because technology is going to kill black folk. And read that book, and that's what he's talking about. He says, because black folk don't have any control of technology, you don't own anything. And that's why we're getting ready to lose all our radio stations in this country. We're going to lose all of our television stations in this country. Because what's happening now, they've lifted the allocation cap, and now it's called social Darwinism, economic Darwinism. Whoever got the most money now can buy anything they want in technology. And so the few black stations we got in the United States now up for grabs. And as a matter of fact, even the cable system is going to be up for grabs because we don't have the money and resources. We can't compete with the whites now who want to buy all the systems. And once that happens, you can't get your information in. Now, that would not happen to organizations, to groups like the Hispanics. Because, see, the Hispanics got smart enough, they built communities. Then they took their language and they built a fence around their communities. They use their culture to protect their communities. Where is your culture in Los Angeles for black folk? Where is your fence? And we're going to talk about that later on. You are vulnerable. The fourth thing that's going to happen to you is that this whole contract with white America is not anti-liberalism. It is not anti-Democratic Party. It wasn't even anti-Clinton. What it was they were trying to answer a question that's been haunting white America for about 30-something years. And that is, what do you do with 36 million obsolete black folk? That's what the contract was for. And how they concluded that was, you see, they got 1,200 white think tanks in America. 1,200 white think tanks. You got one wholly owned black think tank, and that's the Harvest Institute I'm trying to run. They got 3,000 employees with a $500 million budget. I got a few volunteers. No staff, no money. Because you see, in this country, no blacks wants to give my black think tank any money to help our leaders to develop policy and public issues. And when I ask them for money, what they say is that we can't give you money. I said, why not? They said, what is your organization for? I said, to help black America. They said, who's going to benefit? I said, black folk. They said, who's going to work in it? I said, black folk. They said, ooh, too black. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, how can you be too black? What is too black? 10, 20, 30? What's too black? Nobody ever says something is too Jewish, too Indian, too Asian. And I'm telling you, people are telling me this too blackness comes from our black entertainers, our black athletes that's making $100 million. They could give the money to us that they're paying in taxes because we're tax exempt. But they'd rather give it to the government than even give it to an organization to help black folk in this country. Because they don't want to be black. And I keep trying to tell them, it doesn't hurt that much being black.
Hey, peace to the chat. We got Jay Quan in the building. We got Iconic just came in. I said borrowed time. We got MC Lotto TV. MC Lotto TV, how you doing? Quick question. Let us know if you're FBA, if you're a supporter of FBA, or you're a critic of FBA. You dig? That's all.
Now, let me move a little fast. I'm talking too slow. I'm going to speed up now, go real fast. You all keep up with me. Now, what's going to happen now, what these think tanks decide to do in the contract with America, they found out through their research that approximately 68 to 7% of all the blacks in America work in some level of government. This happened as a direct result of the civil rights movement. See, at the end of the civil rights movement, instead of moving against the problem to get more wealth and power for black folk, our civil rights organizations pushed us over and looking for jobs. And so all of our black folk, then over 50 to 60% of all the blacks that got jobs after the civil rights movement went into government. So 68 to 70% of all the blacks in America are working either in federal government, city government, state government, county government, libraries, and school systems.
All right. So when people like Trump want to cut back on government, you see, that's like a low-key way of attacking us. You dig? But it ain't just us, because they're what was I watching? They're also Phil Scott. Phil Scott got an interesting take on that. He has an I'm gonna do Phil Scott next. Phil Scott got an interesting take on this. He believes that they're cutting government programs, yeah, of course, to get us, but more so to get their women. Phil Scott believes that they don't like their women being independent because they're white women independency. They're not wanting to procreate with white men, and a lot of them are moving towards, non-white men, FBAs and other blacks out there. So they're trying to. So Phil Scott hypothesis is that they're trying to depower them, where they need white men more than now. But so Phil Scott believes that the white women, like this empowerment they have, I don't need no man. He feels like they are, I don't need no man more than black women.
So when you hear white folks talking about downsizing government, what they're talking about are de-employing and disemploying black folk. They know that. They know that. So in Washington, D.C., they plan on firing 480,000 people.
Yeah, I agree,
And what
MC
the Office of
Lotto.
Management and Budget, right out of the White House, says is that for every white person who gets fired, we're going to fire 2 blacks. Now, if you're only
Okay,
12.3% of the
Hill.
population,
All right, let me
and you're
go.
going to fire 2 blacks for every white,
Alicia,
you're going to be devastated.
just go ahead and
Now, let me give you the real
like the
picture.
video.
Even before
Everybody
they
like the
started
video.
firing black folk, let me give you the real true options for black folk. There's only 3 things that you can do in this world as a black person to earn a living and survive. You either must work, go on welfare, or you steal. Now, for those who missed that, let me give it to you again. You either work up here, you go on welfare here, or you steal down there. You're talking about your crime problem. I'm going to show you how you get into your crime problem. Now, right now at the top level, everybody prefers to work. Now, I just told you that 68 to 70% of all the black folk are working in government. 26 to 28% of the rest of the blacks are working in white corporations. And those white corporations are going to follow the government. They're going to downsize. You're going to see IBM cutting back.
Young Deity.
Apple Computers and Meritech, Lucent Tech, now all of them are going to cut back. Only 2% of the blacks in America work in their own stores and their own business in their own communities. Only 2% that are not vulnerable. Only 2% of blacks are not vulnerable. The rest are vulnerable in America. Now look at the problem at the top. Now, contrary to what anybody tells you, the unemployment problem in America is not 5.2% you hear every day in the newspapers and read. That is not about black folk. That's about whites. They're only talking about people who are either getting unemployment compensation or looking for jobs. That's how they're getting that figure. The unemployment rate in America for black folk today is 34% nationally. Now, if you want to understand how devastating that is, think for a second. Follow me along. Think about this. When the unemployment rate in America for whites went up to 25% in the 1920s, they called it a depression.
Yeah, this is deep right here. This is deep.
Now, the unemployment rate for blacks hasn't even come down to 25%. But when the unemployment rate went up for whites and hit 25%, they used every level of government. They said it's a depression, and every piece of machinery, money, anything must be used to bring that employment rate down.
HOLC, FHA, the New Deal, GI Bill from 1944, ADC, AFDC, just name it. You did, yeah. It was about get white folks up and running. And systemic racism went crazy wild at that time. And they was able to do solely from that time with all these agencies and programs, AKA welfare. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like, be careful when y'all act like welfare is a negative thing. It's not. White folks always used welfare to survive. I'm talking about the majority of white folks in this country who are not super duper rich, all of them use welfare to get on their feet. All of them use welfare. So when it comes to us, welfare to help us to get on our feet, all of a sudden welfare is bad. See, that's a conservative talking point. When it's every time there's a program that can benefit us, all of a sudden it's bad, and they talk down on it. See, but the thing is, the liberal media don't do a good job defending us, but they do a good job defending illegal immigrants. Right? When it comes to illegal folks, illegal immigrants, liberal media counter all the Republican strikes against them. But liberal media has never defended us. You know, have fought against conservative right-wing propaganda that was negative towards us. The welfare queen, all that. Liberal media ain't come out and say, nah, the welfare queen is actually the white woman. Nope. All super predator, all that type of stuff. Liberal media never came to our defense. Now we're seeing, we thought liberal media was dead. Now all of a sudden they out there caping hard for illegal, undocumented migrants. Not legal, illegal. And they're countering all Trump talking points, all the conservative media sources that's condemning illegal immigration. Liberal media, oh no, they need justice, due process, all this stuff. We ain't never see that energy from liberal media when it comes to defending us from racist attacks, racist propaganda.
And now with black unemployment rate, not at 25%, at 34%, nobody cares. They said we can't, that's not the role of government to help with the
Hey, peace,
unemployment problem.
AVI.
34% for blacks
IQ.
nationally. Now, in Detroit, Michigan, Baltimore, and New York, the unemployment rate is 45%.
Okay, so I'm gonna fast forward a little bit, but I want you guys to, you know, just like the video as you come in. You decide if you want to subscribe or not. That's on you, but at least like the video.
$29 billion to build more prisons in the United States.
All right, let's go further.
In 1638, the founding stone for racism in America was laid. The state of Maryland put out the first public edict that started racism for blacks in America. They put out an edict, a public policy called the doctrine of exclusion. The doctrine of exclusion says that black people should never be permitted to enjoy the fruits of white society. That became the doctrine of racism in America in 1638. Now, that was called a doctrine of exclusion. That meant every time you get a chance, exclude black folk out of it.
Mama,
I don't care what it is, exclude them out.
Because they are the raw numbers, not per capita, raw numbers, white folks dominate welfare.
Now, that went on from 1638 to 1666.
3M, that's a fact.
More specifically. In 1665, something happened. Because during that period, they were trying to find a way to build the United States. And the European colonial powers were saying, I sent you whites to America.
Yeah, right, iconic.
To build America, to use the land, to bring resources,
I still argue about
gold,
LA.
and silver, and products back to Europe.
Exactly,
and the colonial
Ricardo.
powers, contrary
Always
to reading
was.
the history books, they did not come here for religious freedom. They weren't fools. They could have gone any place in Europe and worshiped.
Right.
There was no there but woods and bushes and trees over there. They came here specifically to get wealth and resources and gold.
Don't they all say now?
And they went.
The average Nigerian, I come over here for opportunities to be successful. They're not coming over to be religious and kumbaya with folks, with the natives, you dig? The indigenous people here and smoke on tobacco from a pipe. Nah, they come over here for opportunities. And some of us could look at that as stealing. I don't think that's necessarily wrong.
They kept telling the European colonial powers that we can't do anything with America because we don't have a labor force. And somebody said, yes, we do have a labor force. So you remember that group back in 1638 that Maryland shut out under the doctrine of exclusion? That's our labor force. So at that point in time, what they did then, they passed what we call enslavement laws.
Yeah, exactly.
They passed enslavement laws, and they took the doctrine of exclusion and expanded it. So that not only did the doctrine of blacks to be excluded,
right,
now
Tashi.
blacks were to be excluded.
Hey, listen. Everybody who ever came to this country, unless, and even an illegal document, I mean, even the illegal undocumented, but the only people who can actually make that claim that they didn't get any help is probably the illegals, because they're not supposed to get help. But states and churches still have funding for them. But the only people in this country, when I say only, that's all caps. That's ONLY. We're the only people in this country to never get assistance, to never get loans and make it pop anyway. We got millionaire cities, we got millionaires, and none of them got assistance. None of them got protection. You dig? That money was fragile as hell, wasn't secure. There was no FDIC on our banks. You dig? Wasn't really insured like that. Like we were the most vulnerable people in this country ever. Okay, as far as your life, your freedom, your assets, your money, all that type of stuff, your family, we were the most, nobody close. And like I said, we were the only people to have to literally get it from the mud. Nobody else done that. And only maybe a handful of illegals can say that, but it's like, hey, but you're not supposed to be here anyway.
Subordinated, non-compensated, non-competitive work group, a labor force for the personal comfort and wealth building of white society.
Yeah, exactly, Alicia.
That was what the slave code said explicitly and implicitly.
Please call York and throw a wrench at you, just like the video. Thank you.
It decided how you were to be treated. At that slave codes again. And remember this, on anything that goes on in Los Angeles, you can tell when your policy in effect.
It's funny, y'all was talking about Los Angeles, now he's talking about Los Angeles.
excluded, subordinated, non-compensated, non-competitive, managed workforce for the personal comfort and wealth building of white society. That stayed in effect until about 1705. 1705, the slave codes were passed. Very important. What the slave codes did was to tell everybody, whites on one side and blacks on one side, how you were to treat black folk and how whites were to behave towards each other. It says that every white person must accept how black folk were to be treated. They must accept the public policy. And that every white institution, every white church, every white business, every white school, every white level of government, and every white individual must treat black folk in an exploited, subordinated, excluded manner. Any white person who deviated from that, he could be hurt and injured and lynched.
Yeah, and also, chat, if y'all got some good videos out there you think I should watch, just, tag me, put the link in the chat. I'll click it and save it and do that. And if there's like some hate, some folks that's like ops of us, and they supposed to be smart, and they supposed to be debunking us, let me know. Send those videos, I'm gonna rip them to shred as well. It could be good or bad.
Even whites could not deviate from that policy. And black, you could not, no.
Because think about this, hey chat, listen, chat. We got 84 people watching, and think about this. We got 84 people watching. It's probably gonna grow to 100. And we got nobody asking for smoke. Right? Because I've been there, I cooked damn near all of them. Ain't nobody asking for the number, ain't nobody asking for the link. They're just taking this beating from Dr. Claude Anderson. Ain't nobody asking for the phone number or link. In other chats, 100 folks, 200 folks, everybody trying to get on and debate. Think about that. Think about nobody's asking for the phone number or link to challenge some of our stances, some of our ideologies, our delineation. Nothing. They're quiet, taking this beating from Dr. Claude Anderson.
No white person could raise a black person up to make him equal to a white person. And on the other side of slave codes, it told how blacks were to be treated. Blacks were not to be permitted to be equated to whites in any respect. A white person could not enter a room without a white person's permission. A black person could not enter a group, carry on a conversation without permission. He could not carry a weapon, a tool. He could not raise his hand to defend himself. He could not strike a white person. He could not be called out after dark on certain times, carrying a weapon. And he couldn't even look out, some cases, he couldn't even look out the same window the whites looked out of. That was a subordination. He could never be put in a position of power and authority. Now, those what the slave codes did. And also the slave codes attached to that was called the Diversity Act of 1705. It says to make sure this thing works, every time you get 6 black folk together, make sure there's 1 white person included. That was to always monitor black folk, to make sure they never did any planning, that they never did anything that could be injurious to them.
Yeah, thank you for that. Mama, yeah, family, hit the like button. I know because I do it too. Sometimes I watch somebody's video, it'd be very interesting, and I do it too. I don't hit the like right away until somebody say it or I read it in the chat. Like, I say, oh yeah, and then I go. Because before I was always on it, 100% accurate, hit the like button on everybody's video. But recently I've been like, kind of like just watching the video and forgetting about that. But yeah, but liking is great. I even like folks' videos who are non-FBA. Like if they got good content, if they're talking about something I like the video. I always do. Like even like self-defense videos, they teach you how to like the laws of self-defense. I like it, I click it. You dig? So the like button for me goes beyond like FBA. If you do a good video and I enjoy it, I'm gonna like it. You don't gotta be FBA. But but if you're FBA, I'm 100% liking it. Even though the video might not be my type, I like it because you're FBA. Like that's the part of being on code. Matter of fact, let me throw my for those who feeling charitable today, let me throw my Cash App in that damn comment section and pin it.
So by 1710, things really started picking up all over the world. 6 out of every 7 persons coming across the Atlantic were black folk coming to America. 6 out of 7 were blacks. For the first 300 years, coming this way west were blacks. Just to show you what they were doing, just from 1500 to 1660 as an example, They shipped 5 million black folk out of Africa just to Central America down here to dig for gold and silver. And in 150 years, black folk with tools and sticks and stones, they dug out over 16,000 tons of silver and over 4,000 tons of gold. All that went back to Europe.
And you know, I haven't really heard much or seen much of Ibrahim Traoré or Burkina Faso. 'Cause at one point, that topic was like on fire, like 2 months ago, 3 months ago. It was like on fire. Everywhere you went, somebody's doing a video of Burkina Faso or Ibrahim Traoré. It seemed like once he did that deal with, once he cut ties with the French and did the deals with the Russians, I ain't really hear from him since. Like all of the supporters, I didn't really hear what they're doing now. Nothing. Like, am I tripping? Do y'all know something? Put the link in the chat. But I haven't really heard anything from Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, since he did the deal with the Russians. Absolutely nothing. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying I haven't heard nothing. No, I haven't seen videos, nothing.
Black folk at that point in time were producing almost
Right,
99% of all the sugar on earth, cotton,
yeah, exactly,
tobacco,
iconic.
anything else. They were building all the houses. They were the caulkers, builders. So what they did then, they started advertising in Europe. So anybody wants to get wealth, they go to America. You go to America, we guarantee you. We give you free land and free labor. And you would have to be an idiot to come to America if we give you free land and free labor and not get rich.
Okay, so that's what he's talking about. So that was like the land grants. They had like colleges, and they had the 1862 Homestead Act. Right. So matter of fact, I just took it off the screen. I'm gonna bring it back. I just took it off the screen. I got something for you. Watch this. Not spell. Okay, so I want you to follow what he's talking about. Keep up what he's talking about. So I did not click that button. Oh my God. Okay, so I want to just back him up, what he's about to say. So watch this. Because when I tell you guys I study the history of immigration in this country, like some guys be calling my bluff. I'm like, nah, I really do. Okay, so I'm gonna back up. We're gonna touch on this later. We're gonna have some fun with that one. Let's go here.
And you would have to be an idiot to come to America to forgive you.
Let's back up.
Almost 99% back to you. Tons of silver and over 4,000
listen,
tons
listen,
of gold.
family, listen.
All that went back to Europe. Black folk at that point in time were producing almost 99% of all the sugar on earth, cotton,
tobacco, rice,
anything else. They were building
rice.
all the houses. They were the caulkers, builders. So what they did then, they started advertising in Europe. So anybody wants to get wealth, they go to America. You go to America, we guarantee you. We give you free.
Okay, there we go. Let me back it up. Okay, so I want to say this. So when it comes to the building on the railroads, like for my research, we worked on the railroads too, but I think there were more Chinese people. They came afterwards, but more of them were involved in the railroad building because like they came over to expand to the west, right? So although we worked on railroads, like we didn't dominate, and we first did it, but we didn't dominate that. Chinese people came over here and like they kind of took it over, even though we worked on it. The steel mills, we were in there too, but we really ain't dominate that either, even though we were there. I think the Irish and the Italians were dominating that. And we were in the coal mines in significant numbers, but we didn't dominate that either. We dominated the raw materials like the sugar, the rice, tobacco, everything he just said. So, but here's the difference. Although we ain't dominating those areas, they got paid. They came here voluntarily to do it. They were not forced. We were the only people forced to do it. And not only that, we the only people who did everything. We had a hand. That's why we're foundational. We had a hand. So although we ain't dominate the railroads, although we ain't dominate the steel mills, the coal mines, we had a hand in it. You dig? So we had a hand in almost everything that other folks can brag they dominated in. We had a hand in that in significant numbers. Now, they had no hand in what we did. The cotton, the sugar, the rice, and things like that. They had no hand in that. So we're the only people, for one, who was forced to work. It wasn't voluntarily. Secondly, We're the only people to do everything. So we are literally foundational. Like, there's no way to get around that.
All the houses, the caulkers, builders. So what they did then, they started advertising in Europe. So
Okay, hey, so okay, so we got our first critic in the chat. Okay, so I don't mind criticism. Soy to Padre 909. I don't mind criticism. I don't mind a reckless opinion like that. But let me give you the phone number though. Okay. Let me give you the phone number. You said we do 90% of the time. Okay. I know I know what scholar you're gonna use for that, but try me. Here's the phone number. Try me. Okay. I know who your boss is. You did. I debunked your boss. So here you go. Okay. There you go. So that is for we were kings of Egypt. Okay. So Paulie is trolling and so is Soy. No problem. But can we get you guys to call in? Miss Mickey Peace, you said that, yeah, agriculture. Yep. So you said we provide 90% of the crime. I would love for that source. So I would love for you to call in and tell that story. I know you're lying because there's no FBI file that anything remotely close to that. So you're just trolling. And we were kings in Egypt. Nah, 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 nah. We're kings wherever we go, right? Your boss? Well, call in. I'll show you. Because you know what? You probably don't even know what you're referencing. That's embarrassing. You're referencing a talking point that's probably circulated your inner circles, and you don't know where it came from. I know where it came from. That's why I said your boss. So when you call in and try to argue that point, I put the phone number in there. I'm gonna debunk it and tell you where you got it from. I'm gonna tell you where it's first published, where that idea, that terrible argument was first published at. I know your boss. Oh yeah, so your boss, Jared Taylor. Okay, so now watch this, watch this, watch this. Okay, I knew it. I told you, I know your boss. I didn't debunk. I know. I'm sorry. I never debated Jared Taylor. I would love to debate him. I think even though he's wrong, I think he's wise. I think he's very articulate. He's educated in his own right, and like he's a great debater. Okay, make no mistake, he's a great debater. Like he know his talking points. You don't, but he's very good at his talking points. Okay, and as long as I hold him to his talking points, I'm gonna cook him. As long as I don't let him do the rabbit hole thing, I'm gonna cook him. But by the way, brother, I already debunked your leader talking points. So if you can get Jared Taylor over here, I will love. I will appreciate Jared Taylor, Charlie Kirk. I would appreciate these guys over here, man. Like I used to one time troll Candace Owens to get her over here, or even go on her platform to argue with her, debate her. But I got a video. Tariq Nasheed debated Jared Taylor, and he said a bunch of lies, and I debunked all of his lies, every last one of them. That's why I know he can't do nothing with me, because I'm not going to allow him to make up new arguments. No, you're either going to concede on your old arguments as false, or we're not moving on. We're going to deal with these old arguments. Now, if he concedes from the old arguments being false, like he talks about, I'll give you one. He talks about 50% of who we call foundational black. No, they say 13% of, we make up 13% of the population. But then he argues that we commit 50% of the murders. Call that phone number in. Watch I embarrass you. That's a lie. So the burden is on you. Go to those FBI files and show that. You can't do it, neither could he. I know what it really said about 50% in murders. I know what it really said. You don't. Okay. So when he argues that we're attacking white people and violently, that's a lie. Again, he's abusing the FBI files. I know it really says you don't, because y'all just follow men and women like Candace Owens. I don't do that. I follow what was actually being published. Manipulative row. I'm gonna throw you a wrench. Just go ahead and like the video. Okay. I hate when I. All right, let's go. Let's finish.
Anybody wants to get wealthy, go to America. You go to
Okay.
America, we guarantee you. We give you free land and free labor. And you'd have to be an idiot to come to America.
So he's talking about the 1862 Homestead Act and things like that. Not just that solely, but they were incentivizing folks to come to white people from Europe, mainly Western and Northern Europe, to come to America, and all your British subjects and even denizens. Like they were, but mainly like the criminal class. They really had they had a choice. They had a choice. It was either get prosecuted for their crimes because they were criminals in Britain, or come to America and start all over as a dentured servant, and in about 5 years you can buy yourself freedom and get naturalized. All right, so that's what he's speaking on right now. Why this channel won't let
give you free land and free labor and not get rich?
FBA strong.
So they begin, and by 1710, somebody said, well, how are we going to control all these blacks?
So I'm looking at
so
something
the
else.
state of Virginia passed a law called meritorious manumission. Meritorious manumission then says that we will control blacks by building in an internal attitude inside of them to make them see things through our eyes.
Hey, Soy, how is that a perfect example when, like, because Jared Taylor was doing better in the early rounds, but in the late rounds, he faded away. Like in the championship rounds, Tariq was killing him. In the early rounds, Tariq Nasheed, I believe he spread himself thin. He started to argue all of Jared Taylor talking points, and he wasn't honed in on one. Okay, so the burden on him was to prove white supremacy in China and Iraq and things like that. So he had a bigger. I ain't gonna admit he provided a plate that was too big, and he was kind of not doing the best. But once he adjusted to Jared Taylor strategies, second half he cooked the hell out of him. First half, Jared Taylor was winning with lies, and Tariq overspread himself. Oh, you know what I mean? But once he started to hone in on only like specific arguments, he cooked Jared Taylor. And you and I together can do a review. And you could call in and we could play the video or hit the link. You could call in and you could say, stop it. Look right here. Tariq was wrong. This is right. You did. You and I can do a whole review on that debate. And we're going to also point out when somebody's wrong. So when Jared Taylor says something's wrong and we could debunk it right then and there, let's do that. I know you're not going to do that. You're just talking. Well, he didn't lose. He actually won. It wasn't a clean sweep because, sometimes when somebody's good at debating, they're good at debating. Like it won't, even myself, when I debate people, everybody's not easy. Some folks are good at what they do. They're good at their talking points, and you got to take your time and be patient and get rid of them.
To make them white in everything but skin color. And
exactly,
what the meritorious manumission passed by the state of Virginia in 1710 then?
Like I said, I'm going to give credit when they do. Like you could be a great debater. That doesn't mean you're correct. That means you're hard to debunk because we got to know how to, we got to know what lies you're bringing to the forefront and then debunk it on the fly. So we call that gotcha moments where they just throw out random stuff. And because you're not familiar with it, it becomes a fact. Like, no, it's not a fact. I'm just not familiar with it. I ain't got time to chat GPT it because this is a real live debate. So just put that on hold. How about this though? You dig? But Jared Taylor was wrong with the black people. We make up 13% of the population, but we commit 50% of the murders. Now, Soy, won't you defend that? Won't you defend that talking point from Jared Taylor? What about when Jared Taylor had used, I think, Indians and Nigerians as an example of being successful in this country over us? Use that talking point. So I'm giving you his talking points. Why don't you use his talking points and call in if he did so good?
And say we will reward any black who gets very good at this. And so if any black person saves a white person's life, protects a white person's property, invents something that a white person can make money off of, or if he squeals on in the slave revolts, he would get freedom. Okay? And so I tracked from 1710, all the way up to
Hey, bro, there's some truth to that.
And out of
and I got to pause. My fault, family. I got to. So, bro, there's some truth to that. And that's why I challenge all lies. You dig? I'll let nothing fly.
With over 200 some possible slave revolts, a black person squealed in every one of them. And so by following that up, so in 1712, there's a guy named Willie Lynch, 2 years later
So let me go a little further.
Is my time running? Okay. So they built into the Constitution, right after the Constitution was initiated, they built the Constitution based on the premise that you're going to have a social democracy. Very important for black folk. A social democracy means that the majority will win, the minority will lose and suffer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. So I would love for Soy to call in and bring up the IQ thing. Yeah. Jared Taylor, oh my God. First of all, he got that from Charles Murray, the book called The Bell Curve. Bro, you need to go look at my archive videos. A lot of what you said I already debunked. Okay, yeah. So the IQ thing is that's a cherry-picked work by Charles Murray. That was a weak attempt to bring back scientific racism. That is easy to debunk. The IQ thing. That is easy to debunk. Because based on Charles Murray findings, the Nigerians are the smartest people in America. So it debunks it because Charles Murray and Jared Taylor piggybacking off regurgitating Charles Murray. The idea is that black folks' IQ can't get up to white folks genetically, inherently. It's something you're born with. So their argument is that white people are just born smart. So basically, social programs can't help. You're just born that way. Okay. But Nigerians themselves debunk that. Because the Nigerians, when they come over here, they outflourish, outpace, outeducate everybody. That small immigrant group, when they come over here, they outpace everybody. So the Nigerians themselves debunk the bell curve and the IQ garbage. Like I said, this is off the fly. Off the fly. And I know you know nothing about Nigerians and why I'm saying it. This is on the fly. Yeah, but so now Jared Taylor, you and Charles Murray got to explain the Nigerians and their IQ and their success in this country with education, wealth, and everything else. Y'all got to explain that. Because you said y'all said it couldn't happen because because they're black, right? So y'all said we're not born that way. So the Nigerians themselves debunk all that stuff. But we know that social conditions play a part in your IQ. If you have people living in poverty, even poverty and oppression could mess with your IQ, mess with your thinking, your concentration. So we know social issues. When you create environments for people, that's bad, that's poor, that's oppressive, that's underfunded, they're not going to thrive, right? Intellectually like that, because you created a condition where it's damn near impossible. So that's why, it's a bullshit book, because when you change the conditions, so when those Nigerians come over here, they're not coming over here in our conditions. That's why they thrive. When the Indians come over here, they're not coming over in our conditions. They thrive. And when the Chinese people come over here, they're not coming in our conditions and they thrive. So it's known that all you do is take people out the condition, let them go, and you'll see them thrive as well. You guys never did that. You guys, white people, I'm saying, white supremacy and systemic racism, you guys create the condition and leave it there and let it run by itself and say, look, the IQ is at this, and look what they're doing. The crime. That doesn't work. Okay, that's just right wing racist talk. That's it. That doesn't work.
But also in the Federalist Papers, it says that the majority then can never do anything to stop the minority from becoming a majority. And it is the majority's responsibility to protect the minority. And as soon as the Constitution was built on that, it was violated next year, 1 year later. Whites in America never accepted that it was their responsibility to protect black folk if you're going to make them a minority. They're talking about black folks shouldn't be out now chasing civil rights as a minority. They know that as a minority you can't win. You don't have the power. It is the majority's responsibility to take care of the minority. Not
like I said, I cook your balls. So you light work.
And that was violated because in 1790, the first act of the Congress, right after the country was organized with the Constitution, the first law says this is a white country and the quota on black folk is 0. Which means you got a 0 quota, you can only come into this country as a slave. At that moment, black people became the only permanently planned minority in the country.
exactly. But we're gonna talk about that. I want to read something from the chat. So Alicia Hill says their countries and the U.S. support their education and fast track training to replace the cycle of expectation of growth and expectation of raises. And then Broad Time said the Asians and Hindus live in their stores, cutting corners and every chance. Yeah, that's a fact. So when you look at these people, these immigrant classes that's doing great over here, when you trace them back to their country, mm-mm, mm-mm. They are in some of the most poorest countries. They don't have good sanitation. There's trash everywhere. I watch those documentaries. You dig? And yeah, their country, like they're not reflective of their country. You dig? No. Just like yeah, that's it, just like Nigerians and Indians and Chinese folks. Chinese folks in China, they're illiterate as hell. They're not in school like that in China. In China, no. Their elite comes over here. Their elite class comes over here. Not the average working person. All right. The average person with a high school diploma or whatever certification they got, they're not over here because their education system is inferior to ours. So whatever their certification is, they come over here. That's probably equal to a middle school certificate.
You become the only planned loser. Remember, the minority means loser. Anytime you use the word minority, you call yourself a loser. Don't ever use that word. Okay? You call yourself a loser. So their first act of Congress was to pass an act saying it's a white.
Fort Lang, you asked an intelligent question. He said, "How do you concentrate when you're hungry?" They know IQ starts. They didn't know IQ stuff is flawed. Right, right, and that's exactly and that's what scholar. That's how it got debunked. First of all, the bell curve is not a scholarly book at all. It was debunked by scholars. It was picked apart left and right. Okay, so yeah, so they have to put us in a stressful condition and then give us tests and try to look at the test. Say, look, see. Now, if you put them in the same stressful conditions, they do worse.
White nation got a zero quota on blacks except for slaves. Nobody else you see in that minority category is there a law on you. Nobody says how many women you can.
And JJ, that's another thing. JJ Mars says best and brightness leave and don't go back. And that's the problem. Okay, that's the problem for their country, not ours. They don't go back. So their best and bright come over here. That means their country don't have the best and bright. And by the way, get familiar with these terms. That's called a brain drain for their country. When they're best and bright, this is a political term. It's not something I made up. You can Google it. What's a brain gain? What's a brain drain? So when their best and brightest leave their country and never go back, the country who receives their brightest, which would be the UK, Canada, and United States, for the most part, we are brain gain countries. We receive those countries best and bright. That's why our country's so great, and it's greater than everybody else's because we got our best and bright, and we got everybody else's best and bright. So, but they don't take advantage of their own best and bright. So they have a brain drain country, and therefore can never be built up. So now, if your best and bright leaves the country to look for opportunities, quote unquote, and don't go back, who is left to run the country? The degenerates, the criminal class. And that's why their country is ran by a bunch of corrupt politicians, and they got the family thing. They pass all the roles in politics to family. That's why they're all corrupt. The best and bright leaves the country, and they leave it to the criminal class, the degenerates, the illiterates, and they run the country the best they know. And you have all type of sex trafficking, female genitalia mutilation, all type of crazy stuff going on, crime and fraternity fraud, like all type of stuff goes on as a result of the best and brightest leaders. That's all of them. That's just not Nigeria. That's India and everybody else. So it ain't just a black country. That's all of the countries when they're best and bright leave and come over here.
You can have, how many gays you can have, how many handicapped, how many veterans you can have. Only blacks. That's why you cannot get Haitians into the country, because you got a zero quota. That quota was changed in 1966 and raised to 1/2 of 1%.
Claude, peace.
Where you got a few can drift in from the Caribbean. But they know you can't compete because you got 2 million Hispanics coming in every year. And that's why you're gonna get suffocated to death.
Right, Majestic.
As a matter of
What's
fact,
debatable,
jump ahead
bro?
of myself for a second, show you what I mean by the influx and how they're gonna suffocate you. In 1840s, you did not have one single Asian or Hispanic in the entire United
Borrow, you
States.
crazy. That's crazy if that's true.
But you had 5 million black folk that were enslaved. 5 million black folk were enslaved, but you did not have one Asian and one Hispanic. By the Civil War, you had 6,000 Hispanics. By 1900, you had 100,000 Hispanics.
Hey, there's no serious HR 40 plan or 40 bill, bro. Okay, that's old news, man.
You had 100,000 Hispanics in 1900, but you got 11 million blacks. And they got the same identical birth rate.
Everybody
here are blacks,
like
here
the
Hispanics.
video. Kurt Ty, I see you. I'm going to throw a wrench at you. Like the video.
Now they're going to pass
Thank you.
blacks. You know why? You can't come into the country and fight and protect yourself by numbers. You are a permanent loser. And that's why you're going to be overwhelmed in this area. You cannot win because they can't let you get your population up. And the major issue they're going to fight for is keeping the doors of immigration open so they can become the dominant population over you. They know you cannot bring in your people. And that's why you had 3,000 blacks on a boat off the coast.
See, I told you. So you see, he said your people. So he was Dr. Claude Anderson at this point. That's the proof right there. This is the hour mark, right? 1 minute and 31 seconds. He said your people. So he looked at skin folk as kinfolk. So this was even unforeseen by Dr. Claude Anderson. He said you couldn't bring in your folks because we thought skin folks were kinfolk. We thought when they come over here, they're going to be riders with us and things like that. And that is not the case at all. They said, no, we're immigrants like the other ones. We're black, we're dark, we're melanated, but we are immigrants like the people who are not dark, black, and melanated. We're one with them. We're not one with you. We fight for immigration rights and things like that. And you guys fight for civil rights. We're different. And for us, that was like speaking in Chinese. We can't understand because they're black and they look like us. But thanks to a lot of folks waking our minds, right? We understand it now. Like, oh yeah, you're right. You're right. So Dr. Claude Anderson at this point was optimistic that if they poured in black immigrants, that there are people and they'll help our causes. That didn't happen. One more time.
Dominant population over you. They know you cannot bring in your
Myron
people.
Gaines, right?
And that's
our
why
people.
you had 3,000 blacks on a boat.
Wait, one more time. I talked over it.
So they can become the dominant population over you. They know you cannot bring in your people. And that's why you had 3,000 blacks on a boat off the west coast of Liberia, Africa, for about 2.5 months, and nobody even called them in. They were sick and hungry. No country would take them in. The United States has never had an immigration policy for black folk to bring in blacks because they want you to stay in a minority category and loser.
So at this point, this is really for tethers. Like Dr. Claude Anderson is cooking for you. Like y'all should really, he's defending you guys. So you guys should be listening and writing this stuff down and clipping Dr. Claude Anderson because he's telling you how white supremacists, y'all people, y'all bosses, he is explaining how they were never for you because a lot of them come over here and they think it's because white folks respect them and love them. And Dr. Claude said, no, there was never a black immigration policy. One more time.
Come in. The United States has never had an immigration policy for black folk to bring in blacks. Because they want you to stay in a minority category, loser category. And so what we're going to be talking about, we talk about solutions in a little while, is that the only way you win is that you got to learn that when you accidentally become the majority, you immediately start
intuitively wise. Peace. Like the video. Thank you. Everybody like the video. Let me see.
Don't ever let anybody call you a minority. If they're going to call you anything, make them call you the only non-immigrants in America.
Right. FBA. Thank you. Oh, I got to clip that. I got to clip that. I got to clip that. That was hard. He said they're going to call you anything. Have them call you the only non-immigrants in America, which is FBA. That's exactly what FBA, ADOS, and Freeman mean. Oh, that was beautiful. How did I clip that? Okay, yes. Wait.
Every public policy that you develop, every program that you develop it for non-immigrants.
Hold on. I gotta click that.
Okay?
Anything, yes.
Make them call you.
Okay.
Don't ever let anybody call you a minority. If they're going to call you anything,
yes,
make them call you the only non-immigrants in America. Okay?
I got it. Okay. Wait.
Don't ever let anybody call you
Just
a minority.
Just going to repeat it a few times.
If
Just hold on.
If they're going to call you anything, make them call you the only non-immigrants in America. Okay? Don't ever let anybody call you a minority. If they're going to call you anything, make them call you the only non-immigrants in America. Okay?
All right. Give me a second to save this clip. Oh, that was beautiful. Because Tether's like try to make Dr. Claude Anderson, they try to use him against us. All right, cool. That was a beautiful clip. If they're going to call you anything, make them call you the only non-immigrants in America. So also this is like this is also history. It's showing you the making of FBA. Because a lot of people want to act like, oh, that's a new term, that Tariq and event. No, this is 2001. This is 16 years before FBA and 15 years before ADOS. Okay. Okay. So where he's saying, make them call you the only non-black or immigrant group, period, in America. And that's what we are. You did Freedmen, ADOS, FBA. One more time.
Not to call you a minority. You win is that you got to learn that when you accidentally become the majority, you immediately start acting like the majority. Get out of the minority category. Don't ever let anybody call you a minority. If they're going to call you anything, make them call you the only non-immigrants in America. Okay?
That was hard.
Every public policy that you develop,
Alicia,
every program
make
that
them call you.
You develop it for non-immigrants.
You see, every program you develop and blah, 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 make it for non-immigrants, i.e. FBA. So that term is not there. If it was there, he'll be saying foundational black Americans, but the term's not there. So he's just saying non-immigrants. He doesn't know what to call us that's distinctive from everybody else in the world, that delineates us from everybody else in the world. There's no name at this point. But you see, he ain't say Black Americans or Negroes or African Americans like you guys like this.
Every public policy that you develop, every program that you develop it for non-immigrants. When you develop it for non-immigrants, you get into a special category with just black folk. You immediately, that word non-immigrant reconnects you with your history. It reconnects
and your lineage.
With how you got here. It reconnects you with your culture and your past. Right now, you have no past and no culture, no future.
Reconnects you with your culture and your past, lineage. Hey, that's why we're lineage based, and they hate it. They hate it.
And another thing that does when you start using the word non-immigrant is that you jump ahead of all the other groups. As immigrant takes on a negative, you say, hey, I'm not an immigrant, I'm a non-immigrant.
Hey, I agree with bro. So bro said, message to the black man by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was way ahead of his time, way back. And it wasn't 1920s, bro. It was more so like 1955. I know the story you were told, but I'm a guy who's like well-researched on the Nation of Islam and things like that. The book was published in like I want to say 65, but I'm going to say 55, just to be careful, but definitely not 1920s. It could be 1920s because Farad Muhammad get here to 1934. So it couldn't have been before Farad Muhammad got here, you dig? So it was like, I'm going to say 1965, the book was published.
And what you also do, you stop whites from bragging about my daddy came from Poland, my daddy came from Germany. You stop them from doing that by saying, hey, you're an immigrant then. I was here before you. See, 97% of all the black people in the United States were here before 97% of all other people here are even arrived today. Remember that, very important. When somebody starts telling you to go back where you came from, you say, hey, 97% of my people here before y'all ever arrived.
Right. So just to address Jaquan, I don't know what he calls himself, but it doesn't really matter. Because as long as, because again, the name of what we use, it got to be strong and impactful, and it got to be historical, right? It got to tie us to history of this country. But the name really don't get caught up on, because what supersedes the name, what's more important than the name, we could call ourselves plants. It don't matter what we call ourselves. What cannot change is our lineage. The name could change. It could be Negro, color, Black, African American. That can always change. FBA, Adolf Friedman. But what's never going to change is your lineage. So I wouldn't get caught up on what people call themselves. They can call themselves indigenous. They can call themselves aliens. Doesn't matter. We want to know where is your lineage. And once they tie that thing back to slavery, we kind of like, okay, we kind of exhale. Like, okay, so the name doesn't mean that. Hebrew, Israelite, Christian, more. Where your lineage go back to? Okay, all right, yeah, you one of us. All right, move. Go, hold it.
And so if anybody's gonna leave, the last leave first. And the people who developed everything should stay here, because everybody else got a free ride. So let me tell you what happened between 1710 and 1712 and the Civil War. Let me show you what blacks did in terms of accumulating the wealth. Nobody else accumulated the wealth. The wealth was in black slaves.
Right.
They keep flipping things over, tricking my people, making you believe that somehow they worked hard and that they got their money from land. They did not get their money from land. Land had no value. Land had absolutely no value. You could get all the free land you wanted in America. They had head rights and land grants. They gave out millions of acres of land whoever wanted. You could go in the United States and go out to what we call the frontier, where Indians were, and say, I own from here to that mountain, drive a stick in the ground, go down and file a claim. Only time land had value when you put a slave on it.
Right.
And according to President Andrew Jackson, he says that immediately a black slave would bring 75% of the value to the land.
Damn.
So between the time of enslavement and the Civil War, whites in America invested $8 billion into buying slaves.
Mm.
And when they talked about freeing the slaves, they demanded their money back. And they asked for reparations.
Oh yeah, they did. They got it.
Lincoln saying, we'll turn the black slaves loose, but you give us back our $8 billion.
Right.
President Lincoln, you all don't know it, he sent a letter to Congress asking for $8 billion in reparations. Congress says, you know, that kind of money doesn't even exist. That's more money than all of our businesses and the federal budget put together. And that's one of the triggering mechanisms for the Civil War. They didn't have that kind of money. As a matter of fact, from the period I just told you about, from 1710 to the Civil War, 2 out of every 3 people in the United States that had over $100,000, 2 out of every 3 lived in the South. A white plantation owner in the South who had black slaves had 400 times the wealth of a northern farmer.
Mm.
A white person in the South with 2 slaves had a value equal to any non-farmer in the North. Mm. If I take the white person in the North and add his house, his land, his animal, his tools, and his savings together, if you own 2 black slaves in the South, you had as much as a white person in the North. That's
crazy. Hey, bro, so you never told us. So what are you? Are you what we would call Foundation Black American? Or are you just a supporter? Maybe you're non-Foundation Black American, but you're a supporter. Or are you like a critic, or are you just watching? You don't even know. I'm just curious.
In the South, up until the Civil War, a black slave was an American Express card, a walking Visa card. A white person did not have to work. All they'd do in the morning was get up and get his 2 slaves off to work, and lay and wait for them to come back.
Yep. And they talking about bootstraps and got it from the mud. Yeah. Listen, man. I tell you, I'll have this convo with anybody. There's nobody in this country that was ever lazier than white people. Okay? White Americans always been the most laziest Americans in this country. They are absolutely the laziest. They never got it from the mud. They never pulled up their bootstraps. They are lazy, always been lazy in this country.
He didn't have to work.
As a collective.
On the eve of the Civil War, to show you what that means in terms of having a slave, black people in the South on the eve of the Civil War picked and sold alone over 1 billion pounds of cotton and was sold just to England
Oh,
alone.
bro's white.
England paid 48 cents a pound for that cotton.
Yo, listen. Hey, chat. You know what's funny? Like we're like very lenient on, we just say, hey, where you from? What's your lineage? And folks, they tell us, they say FBA, they say Jamaican, they say Irish, they say whatever they want to say, and we just take it, face value. We really could be petty and say, hey, man, because y'all all got wrenches. We really could be petty and say everybody at least got to put their Facebook link in the chat. Like, we really could do that and be petty. Okay? Because, and these fake accounts ain't going to work because we can see how updated it is. We can see it when it was created. We can see your last uploaded picture, and we can see like the likes and people who comment when your birthday come, who says happy birthday. We can, your birthday come up in our culture. You say happy birthday, cousin. Yo, where's Frank? Things like that. So we really can be petty and find out who is who to that degree. It won't be absolute without some DNA results, but we can see, or without looking at your lineage family tree, but we can really be petty and say, hey man, it's required that you put your Facebook link or subscribe to the Facebook group. So I got 2 Facebook groups. I got Black Think Tank that got like 11,000 people in there, and I got FBA versus everyone that got like 2K. All right. Yeah. So we can really be petty and say, hey man, we don't believe nobody without a Facebook profile validating who they are. We can really be that petty. And at some point, we're gonna get to, you gotta show your family tree, which I can do at a drop of a dime. You dig? But we're not there right now. It's not that serious. We just taking folks at face value because even though somebody did lie, we're gonna find out anyway by their rhetoric in the chat. Like all of us got ego eyes. We examine every little word. Like we even challenge ourselves sometimes. Like, hey, you ain't FBA, because we're so on edge of cosplayers and white supremacists.
That cotton, that money from that cotton, gave every white person in the United States $500 without even working on the eve of the Civil War.
Damn.
So what I'm telling you is that
Ricardo,
they didn't get their wealth from working hard.
Right, at all.
And I went back and looked in 1860 and saying, in 1860s, what did black folk own, even the free blacks? In that time, poor blacks that were free in America, blacks in general,
those IDs,
they had 1/2 of 1% of the wealth in 1860.
Here we go.
Again in 1960 and see what they'd accomplished after a Civil War, World War I,
Exactly, World
War II, Vietnam War, Korean War, and the Civil Rights Movement. See what blacks went up 1% in 100 years, and all those catastrophic national, international events. The wealth was frozen in 1860. And even today, blacks control less than 2% of the wealth. You have not moved. Blacks don't own anything that has any value over 2%. So what I'm saying to you now is that that's where the wealth came from. And starting from 1860 up to now,
they go my Facebook.
That became what we call inherited wealth. The white society nailed that wealth down. So that now that it's passed on from one white generation to the next, to their offsprings, children, parents to child, parents to child. It's been going on now for 15 or 16 generations. And what does that mean for you as a black person?
This is my Facebook right here.
That the average white person, because racism exists, and without racism it wouldn't be important. Because racism exists, every white person is born.
That's my Facebook.
87% of what he needs to be
and look at this.
in life with his skin color.
Friends, you dig? Friends. So that's nobody get you. You got fake profiles. Y'all ain't gonna have about 100 friends.
Scheme in his head and
you ain't gonna have thousands of friends. So
everything he needs
we'll get you.
In his culture,
we'll catch you cosplaying.
In his community, in his neighborhood, in his family, in his school, in his business, and in his government. He's gonna run into it sooner or later just by staying a straight course. And for that reason, you see, Ted Turner and Donald Trump can go bankrupt, become a millionaire, go bankrupt, become a millionaire over and over again. Doesn't make any difference. A black person, if he ever becomes a millionaire one time, you've got to hold on because they never do it twice. Because, see, a black person is born with 0.
Exactly. And family, as you come in, the likes are getting up there, but they're not where they should be, but they are respectable. But just like the video, if you don't have a rent, your FBA, let us know, or a supporter. You ain't got to be FBA, but at least a supporter that you're a rider, you're an ally. I rent you up as well. Critics, respectfully, I can't get y'all rents because we're ops.
Why is he born with 0? When a white child comes in with 87%, a black child comes in with 0. Because it's called inherited wealth. I just told you everything is locked into the white culture. And so a black child cannot inherit anything because what we've been focusing on. We have been dealing with symptoms and not problems. For all these years, we talk about how can a black kid cannot inherit food stamps. He can inherit welfare. He can inherit
as you can see,
housing.
Trump rolling that back.
He cannot inherit a job. So he comes in at 0. He cannot compete against a white child because as parents, you're letting them down. You're not giving your child a fair break. He can't compete. And I don't care how much you're going to scream at these black kids about what they should be doing. They are not crazy. You're not giving them any tools. You're trying to motivate kids. You cannot motivate a child to be successful. Motivation only means giving people interest in doing something. What you got to do, working with Dr. Price, you got to empower these young people. There's a difference between motivating people and empowering. I see all these blacks running around.
Dr. Price is the pastor of this church that's allowed Dr. Claude Anderson to pitch this beautiful message. So you got to be careful with black pastors. They all ain't what you experience. Because this is how we know. This is his first public speech to the masses. So this is how we know who Dr. Claude Anderson is, because his pastor provided his church, gave him they had been having all that type of camera angles and all that. Yeah, so he gave all this to Dr. Claude Anderson because he believed everything Dr. Claude Anderson is saying. So obviously the pastor was FBA himself. But yeah, man, like black pastors, black churches need a little more respect. Like you ain't gonna ever see me, disrespect black pastors and churches unless they do something ridiculous. But they just minding their business, being spiritual and whatever. Do what you do, man. Because I understand there's 43 million of us, and we're gonna look at life differently, right? But the more we acknowledge we're FBA, I think we're gonna be more alike than non.
I'm a motivational speaker. That's a pimp and a hustler.
Golden Brown.
You don't
Kendrick, peace.
Motivate black folk, you empower them.
L.
Now here's the difference between motivation and empowering. I can motivate everybody in this auditorium this morning to want to go to Europe and lay on the beach and enjoy a good life, lay at the hotel and eat well. I can motivate you. But if I don't give you the money, the tools, y'all understand what I'm saying? And I don't give you the tools, the ships, the boat, the airplane, the hotel, I'm playing games. Am I not?
Right.
And that's what they keep doing with black folk. They always want to motivate black folk rather than empower them.
Right.
And what I talk about all the time, all this country, and I'm going to work with Dr. Price on, is that give you those tools. You give black folk the tools, and they'll do the job. Okay?
Right, Miss Mickey. You want it?
I'm watching the clock. I don't know how much time I've spent so far. Am I fine? 47 minutes? Okay. I got 47 minutes. Let me wrap it up then. So give them the tools. They can be successful. But they won't always want to motivate blacks. And that's why we came out of slavery. What they did, they gave blacks what I call non-economic emancipation. Then when we came out of Jim Crow, they gave us non-economic integration.
Right.
See, money never...
Hey, that's stolen. That's stolen. Non-economic emancipation, non-economic integration. Yeah, that is stolen. I like that.
The picture. Why didn't it enter the picture? Because here's why it's important for you all to remember this. Because at the Civil War, that was the dividing line. That was the first time that land became more important than a black slave. Okay? And that's why you all didn't get the 40 acres and a mule. Okay? Because that was the first time when they said nobody could ever own slaves anymore, then the value jumped from a slave to land. And they said, then blacks won't get any. And you never got your 40 acres and a mule. That means you were vulnerable, you couldn't compete, you had no place to go, you were homeless, penniless, and you suffered 260 years of planned ignorance, So you couldn't do anything. And so then the second compromise was committed. Immediately after the Civil War was over, the North then sold blacks out.
Right.
They looked at the poor whites in the South and said, well, now that we've taken all the wealth out of the South, because what we really want to do, what we were fighting the Civil War over, was to take the wealth from the South and move it to the North.
Right.
And now that we got the wealth, you all can have the South again, and you can have those blacks.
Right. You could build the South back up with these guys. You know, they'll build your companies up. No longer your plantations, but you guys got to update and get into the industrialization period and start building companies with these folks. No more plantation. You're making the country look bad.
And so immediately in 1866, the South passed what's called the Black Codes. The Black Codes were nothing but the same code.
Right. Lord.
Called the Slave Codes. So it re-enslaved black folk. And you went back into second slavery that they called Jim Crowism. Now, what was the effect of Jim Crowism? Let me show you. Up until that point in time, black folk were the primary labor force in the United States because nobody else wanted to work. All whites in America want to be the genteel class. They want to be the lazy class. They want to be able to, the aristocrats. They didn't want to work. They didn't want to get their hands dirty. But what they'd done, though, by that time, black folk were the caulkers, the mechanics, the bricklayers, the plumbers. Blacks made up almost 50 to 60% of all the workers in the factories, in the tobacco factories, and the iron factories, and the mines in the East. In the South, alone, after the Civil War, according to the 1865 census, that out of 120,000 artisans mean educated or skilled people in the South, people who could do the job, the work, out of 120,000, 100,000 were blacks. So by 1867, it got tricky. Now that the war is over, America then started their little game with the immigrants again. So between 1866 and 1880, they brought in 12 million European immigrants into America.
All right. So let me add to that. Like I said, I studied the history of immigration in America. So majority of them were from Northern and Western Europe. They had immigration quotas, restrictive quotas on white European immigrants coming from Southern Europe and Eastern Europe. So Northern and Western Europeans were welcome because they were seen as Anglo-Saxon, pure white. They could assimilate easier, right, to the country as an American. And they seen the Eastern and Southern Europeans as holding on to their ancestry and culture longer and taking longer to assimilate, if ever assimilating. So this is why when they came over here, you know, they called themselves Irish still and other Portuguese and things like that. And they had pictures, you know, they started to make fun of them. Right. So there you go. Yeah. So, okay. So he might tackle that. But right after that, they had added that when they start bringing those Europeans over here, American government said, okay, we have a problem. There's too many Europeans coming over from Southern and Eastern Europe. So what we got to do is we got to establish immigration restrictions for them. And that was in 1917. Then they had another one in 1924. You have to look that up. So now keep in mind, family, this is what Turkey she talks about all the time with tethers and that feel white folks love them. So if they were restricting, now again, 1917 and 1924, that's around Ellis Island, right? So if they are making acts, if they're making restrictive quotas for white people from Europe, why the hell would they want black people over here? If they got laws passed to restrict the number of European, whatever you want to call them, white Europeans come over here in 1917 and 1924, they updated 1924. Why the hell would they be caping for black people? So actually, guys, when you look at the 1964 Civil Rights Act, when it was passed, and the next year, the Immigration Act, read that, and I'm gonna read it for you. Okay, I got my little stuff pulled up. The 1965 Immigration Act was primarily to uplift the Immigration Act from the year. So basically, 1965 Immigration Act it ratified, or not ratified, but it overrid the 1924 Immigration Restricted Act. So that's when they said, okay, all right, so we're no longer going to restrict Europeans from Southern Europe and Eastern Europe. Y'all could just come. And then other immigrants came afterwards, right? So it wasn't really for the other immigrants. It was for European immigrants. Y'all could read it. You dig? And of course, it overrid the Chinese Exclusion Act and things like that. But again, that's why I am who I am, and they are who they are. You can't fake research.
Happened to poor blacks again. They got booted out of those positions. They got kicked out. In the North, they created something called UNIONS, unions. They created unions and kicked blacks out of all those jobs I just told you about, as mechanics and plumbers and engineers and bricklayers and all that kind of stuff. They kicked them out and started unions. Then they put a clause in it's a white-only union. They kept blacks out of jobs up until the 1960s.
Right. And so also that's when our hero that you guys never heard of, right? A. Philip Randolph, he was fighting for union laws to extend to black people. He was actually with the Italians, because Italians were not also allowed in those unions. So the Italians were lies. You got a couple of Italians that debated Tariq Nasheed, which I will go over again. I'll do a reaction, and I'm going to debunk all the Italian lies. But he tried to act like it was Italians only who got those child labor laws passed and, union rights and things like that. And it was A. Philip Randolph. That nobody really got anything done in this country without our help. We're like non-white American. Because at that time, the Italians became white in like the 60s. So they were not benefiting from the unions. So the Italians, like everybody do now, had asked for FBA help, and A. Philip Randolph, who was already doing that. So when people say the civil rights movement started in the 60s, I know you're a fool. The civil rights movement actually started with Frederick Douglass, but A. Philip Randolph had resurrected it and kept it going out there, I think, New York. But that's A. Philip Randolph. That's why he's called the father of the civil rights movement. And he also marched with Dr. King. Matter of fact, that was his idea. That was A. Philip Randolph's idea to march on Washington. King was litty and popping and trending, so he linked up with King, obviously. But A. Philip Randolph was King's mentor, Dr. King's mentor. And A. Philip Randolph is also the guy who led the Garvey Must Go campaign and got Garvey scamming ass deported out of the country. That's A. Philip Randolph. So a lot of tethers and Afrocentrists and Pan-Africanists, they got an issue with A. Philip Randolph, Carl McCoon and things like that. And A. Philip Randolph, although he's cool with W. Du Bois, he was not part of that talented 10th, and he did not, and I'm not saying good or bad, but he did not work with white folks at all. So he was against W. Du Bois linking up with white people to form the NAACP. A. Philip Randolph felt like, nah, black only. So when they disrespect A. Philip Randolph, I know they either just flat out lying or don't know the history, but they get cooked over here too.
Almost 100 years. Just shut them out.
Yeah, Pullman Porter, right? That was A. Philip Randolph and others.
Even though 55 to 60%
but A. Philip
of all
Randolph,
the
he took
farmers
face
in
of
the
that.
South were blacks, they created farmer alliances so black folk could not raise their products and sell their products in the market. That's why the black farmers were crying over in Tuskegee. Said nobody. As a matter of fact, it just made the front pages of the Washington Post. What day was it? Thursday. Front page of Washington, what happened to the black farmers right today. They can't raise anything. They can't raise their crops. And if they're raising, they don't have a distribution system. They don't have a market because they don't have a community. Nobody can get the crops from Tuskegee or from the South to New York City because, see, the white won't let you use their system to do it.
Right.
Unless they control it, manipulate, and they get the profit and advantage. So those poor farmers down there are losing their land at three times the rate of white farmers. In 1920, we had 20 billion acres of land.
Oh, word. Peace, Sammy Earl.
Land in the United States belong to blacks. It's down to less than about 400,000 acres now. You're going out of existence. And as the food crop moves further and further away from black folk into the hands of 2 or 3 major corporations,
my fault. Shit.
You're in serious trouble.
That was my fault.
Because 78% of all the blacks in America now live in 10 large cities. You got a 10-day food supply. If somebody wanted to, they can starve all the blacks in America to death in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly, bro.
Your farm,
Big reason.
farmlands and everything else. Nobody want to make an issue out of it. The Washington Post had the front pages saying the black farmers are almost gone. But anyhow, so what happened then after the Civil War? The immigrants came in, bumped blacks out, froze them out. Some people say, well, black folk can compete if we educate them. Wrong. Didn't work. When black folk came out of slavery in 1866, they had a 98% illiteracy rate. That means only 2% of the blacks in the United States could read and write in 1860s. But by 1900, blacks reduced their illiteracy rate from 98% down to 40. Blacks learned faster than all those white immigrants that came to America. Blacks cut their illiteracy rate faster than all the European immigrants. But when I went back and did analysis on job mobility and on money and wealth, guess what happened? The whites that came in, they went up, blacks went down. Which means education was not the factor. So when you tell a child to get an education, you don't deal with racism, it won't do any good.
Right. And where that white supremacists go? It was Soy and somebody else. They hauled ass.
I got blacks all over the country telling me, so Dr. Anderson, it's time for black folk to put racism behind them. Black people cannot put racism behind you.
I wonder I wonder what blacks were they?
Because you didn't put it in front of yourself.
Right.
You don't have the power to put anything behind you. And the most dangerous thing you can do is to start talking about cutting yourself away from your history and the fact of racism. Because let me tell you all why. And remember this, there's only 3 ways we could have possibly gotten into our dilemma. Either we were where we are because God wished it up here, or because we are genetically inferior down here.
Right, what they want to believe with the IQ test.
Games and social engineering.
Yep.
One of those 3.
Right.
Now, I don't believe God wished black folk to be in this dilemma. But yet, the dominant white society taught that and used their churches from 1600s up until 1860 to say that God wished it. The blacks somehow were smited. Right. Being an offshoot of Ham. Remember that?
We got that from white supremacists.
They used the Bible to teach that black folk were inferior and that you were justifiably slaves.
Right.
Then from 1860s up until present day, they've been using genetic. That's why you got a book called The Bell Curve.
I told you.
Saying that you're genetically inferior.
Wait. And look, I just addressed that earlier, right? I'm telling you, look, I don't remember this whole video. I'm doing a reaction live. I don't remember everything that I watched 20 years ago. But I just talked about the bell curve earlier. Like, there's not too many people out there can just talk, because you got to be well researched. But the bell curve, I explained that to that white supremacist in the chat who tried to reference Jared Taylor. You see, they didn't call in. You see, they fled. Okay, they not in the chat any longer. I debunked like 3-4 Jared Taylor stronger points on the live here. You dig? In real time, in a real way.
Then from 1860s up until present day, they've been using genetic. That's why you got a book called The Bell Curve. Saying that you're genetically inferior. That's why you're in your dilemma. And what I tell blacks over, both of those are tails. You're where you are because you've been socially engineered.
Right.
The last thing.
White folks know that.
Playing games with you, manipulating the circumstances, controlling you. And if somebody has socially engineered you into your dilemma, the only way you're going to get out is for somebody to take the responsibility of what? Socially engineering you out.
Reparations.
And that's why I created the Harvest Institute.
All right. Hold on. All right. So let's pause right there. Let's have some fun for a second. Wait a minute. Let me first do this real fast. Okay. Let me first do this. Okay. Let me first do this. Okay. Give me a second. Let me first read a little bit for you. All right. So we get some context, because we keep hearing things, but we don't read it. So it's one thing to hear something, family, and watch something, but it's better to read it. Because whatever I say, whatever Dr. Claude say, whatever Nick Fuentes say, we read it from somewhere. Now, we probably botched the context or misrepresented the article, but it was written down somewhere. It was published somewhere. So every time somebody talked, they didn't just come out out of nowhere and just come up with it. Like they read it somewhere and it was most likely published. So it's good to hear people talk about great things, but you want to see it yourself, though. Okay, so the colonial period, 1607 to 1776, between the 16th and the late 18th century, European governments, so this is part of my study when I told you guys I studied the history of immigration. European governments implemented uh, mercantilist economic policies to increase their trade surpluses via import tariffs and the subsidization of export industries. Mercantilists treated their citizenry like resources and restricted or compelled their movement based on factors such as class and or social status. Britain, for example, here we go. This is the meat. Britain, for example, fiercely protected citizenship by limiting naturalization and forcibly populating its colonies, like America, with criminals. Now, we always heard it. You're reading it now. This is a legitimate source. This is the Cato Institute. Okay. So by forcibly populating its colonies with criminals and other social pariahs that the British government deemed undesirable, right? They didn't want their worst in the country. They want them out. Okay. Naturalization was economically important because only British citizens known as subjects could own real estate and bequeath it to their heirs under English common law. Thus, limitations on naturalization constrained the economic options for new immigrants from other nations. When we say new immigrants, we're talking about Europeans. Britain's unwillingness to naturalize immigrants relegated most of its aliens residents to a legal position called denizen. You heard me say that earlier. Similar to the Athenian metic, a foreign resident of Athens, which gave them limited economic rights, reduced their political rights, and placed restrictions on bequeathing their estates under common law. Whereas European countries discourage interior migration of their citizens, they typically encourage the immigration. Hold on, turn down a little bit. Okay. They where was they typically encourage the immigration of skilled workers without encouraging naturalization. So Britain ain't play everybody as a citizen. All right. So European governments also encourage immigration to their colonies, and colonial governments offer quick naturalization, land grants. We just read about that with Dr. Claude, and debt and relief. In North America, here we go. The British Crown's desire to settle its colonies caused it to ignore the lax naturalization process in the colonies. So they felt like they was naturalizing too often over here in North America, which granted immigrants the rights of Englishmen within the colonies in which they resided. Eventually, however, let me go back, in 1700, Parliament limited the colony's ability to grant naturalization. So they said, oh, we got to stop that. And other rights, other group rights, because it believed that the colonial naturalization policies weakened English citizens' trading positions. They no longer got the upper hand. What is biting me? God damn, that's how is that? All right. Thereafter, I'm not gonna read the whole thing. It's a lot here. Like I said, this is the history of immigration. All right, so not every last thing, but a good read. So thereafter, many colonies relied on local naturalization and grants of citizenship until Parliament passed the Plantation Act of 1740 to ease the colonial naturalization process and spur settlement. The pact created a uniform naturalization system that granted new, look at this, not they didn't want Catholics, right? White people. So it granted new non-Catholic colonial settlers English naturalization after 7 years of residency contingent upon a religious test. You have to take a religious test. They don't want Catholics. And I'm gonna explain why. A pledge of allegiance, right? That was the early forefathers of this country, the white forefathers, and a statement of Christian belief to which some people, such as Jews, were exempt. So Jews were exempt of that, obviously, because they're Jews. Despite the Plantation Act, the colonies preferred to rely on more rapid local naturalization process to further incentivize immigration. So they didn't want Catholics in the country early on because they feel like the Catholics were going to speak against enslavement, right? So that's why they didn't want them. They feel like they're going to be sympathetic towards enslavement and become abolitionists. So now we got voluntary and forced migration. Here we come. Now we're going to be added into this. I want you guys to pay attention to this. Clip if you can, remember it, document, write it down, take a picture. Individuals arrived in the British colonies via two very different paths. Some were forced to immigrate either through transportation or slavery, while others came voluntarily. Watch this. Individuals, because now we're going to read about ourselves. Individuals arrived in the British colonies via two very different paths. I already read that. All right. So now look what transportation is. When they say via transportation or slavery, look what transportation is. Transportation is a criminal term for forced immigration, right? Allowed Britain to expel its social undesirables. So Dr. King talks about this when he talks about land grants and when we want our check. Okay, criminals and others to populate its North American colonies. Okay, in practice, criminals sentenced to death could either choose transportation or hanging. So which one you think they're gonna choose? And so forced immigration was a common choice since death was the only punishment. Don't forget, the hanging is because they did something worthy of hanging according to British law. So we're not gonna act like, hey, you got to go there, we're gonna hang you. No, you're gonna be punished for your crime or go to North America. So this was really a choice. This wasn't really forced. Like they were supposed to be hung for their crime. Okay, so make sure I ain't skip anything. So in practice, criminals sentenced to death could either choose transportation or hanging, and so forced immigration was a common choice since death was the only punishment for a felony conviction under English common law. In North America, transported persons began landing in British colonies as early as 1615. All right. Now, by 1717, the Transportation Act granted English courts the ability to sentence convicts to transportation, so no longer hanging or something else, thus streamlining the process. Okay, so the courts could effectively banish convicts for up to 14 years and then turn them into indentured servants. Before the American Revolution, Britain transported about 50,000 convicts to the American colonies. While colonists opposed transportation, the colonies were unable to prevent the migration of British subjects who were exempt from many colonial immigration restrictions. I'm getting it. I know reading ain't the most entertaining thing. Okay, the largest population of forced migrants to North America were not criminals from Britain, but 388,000 African slaves. Okay, slavery was different from the other forced migrations, as unlike in the case of convicts, there was no possibility of earning freedom. See how we're different from them? There was no possibility of earning freedom. Although some enslaved were manumitted, and I'm gonna add to that, some were bought out of it, some bought themselves out of it. The century before the American Civil War, African slaves and their descendants have comprised a substantial part of the population in the British colonies and the United States since the 1600s. But thinking of slaves as immigrants, here we go. This is the part I want you guys to focus your eyes on so we can kill. This is the Cato Institute. This is a legitimate scholarly article here. Okay, this is for tethers and everybody else trying to scare us. But thinking of slaves as immigrants stretches the meaning of that word to its breaking point. You see, enslavement was an experience so radically different from what was experienced by other migrants that the story of slavery does not fit into the papers. It does not fit into the paper's narrative. Okay, so don't let people lie to you. Scholars of this country, historians, they know we're not immigrants. They know we were enslaved here. We were forced to do labor. So there's no confusion with the people that matters the most when it comes to who's an immigrant, who's not. All right. There's no confusion. So those who migrated to the colonies on their own volition were drawn by the allure of cheap land, high wages, and the freedom of conscience in British North America. Many of these individuals financed their passage by entering into indentured servitude contracts. This arrangement meant that migrants exchanged future years of their labor for passage to North America. At the end of their contracts, the indentured servants will be discharged with a small amount of cash, skills, and sometimes land on the new continent. During the 1700s, a significant share of Europeans coming to British North America were indentured servitude. Now I'm going to stop right there. I wanted to read the most important part. You dig? Historians, scholars, they know that is a hell of a stretch, hell of a reach to ever classify us as immigrants. That's the part I want to get to. That's why I say I study the history of immigration. Ain't nobody gonna pull that lie on me. Like, are you serious? Stop. Okay. All right. Let me see some where we at with the chats. Let me read some chats. Where we at? Shorty, peace. America is getting all of the British crooks, their garbage facts. Why I said so the counterpunch is to get the immigrants out of the country to uplift I can't read the blocking. Our community. Right. Boom. They came of their own free will. Exactly. Exactly. Lord says so these were the Pookies and I love that. Laura said that, I think he's talking about reference to the criminal class of Britain coming to America. So they had their Pookies and Ray Rays and Bonquishas and Coco Nishas come over here. All right. So let's go back. Let's go back to Dr. Claude for a second, and then we're gonna have some parody moment. All right, because we want to deal with some of other stuff folks be doing around here.
So what we're doing now is trying to go back and understand everything that's happened to black folk, and I'm trying my best in my books and my institute to turn everything upside down and give you a halfway fighting chance to come out of it as a winner.
All right, so now let's have some fun, because some folks take some of this great information for granted, and they get into stuff like this.
Okay. Do you have the with you by chance? Yeah, I still need to get something out of the trunk. You can walk back there with me. Okay. Oh!
What is he getting out the trunk? Anybody can guess?
Oh, I won't.
Maybe a flag.
Do you want to close your door? I don't want it to get hit. Give you some light.
Okay, and guys and gals, don't fall for the revised history from Tethers and Pan-Africanists acting like Africans didn't sell us to white people. They want to minimize it by saying, no, white folks came and kidnapped the bulk of Africans to sell them. No, not sell them, kidnapped them to add them to, bring them to America and the diaspora. And only a small percentage of Africans were actually sold. It's actually backwards. So from the 14 and 1500s, white folks try to come to the coastlines of Africa and actually kidnap, Africans. That didn't last long because Africans are hella deep. So they start to retaliate and put fists to lips and spears to chest, and the colonizers stopped, and they came back 100 years later to offer another proposition that was, hey, well, just sell them to us. And then that's how the millions came across the Atlantic. All right. So don't let them revise history saying, oh, Africans didn't. No, yes, they did. Yes, they did. They sold the bulk of it. So people pick and choose when they want to research correctly and when they want to rely on opinions, things like So here it is. They want to deny FBA, and they want to hang on to this right here as an alternative.
Looking at a free driver's license. Looking for my paperwork. It goes along with that.
I'm gonna fast forward a bit. It's like a nothing burger for a while.
I'm gonna have to report this human rights breach because that's why I asked for a supervisor. That's not good enough for me. I don't mind whatever you're gonna do. I'm gonna let you do your job, but I still need someone that's above you. And if no one is working.
So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna explain how this came about, like why people believe that they can roam around America without any consequences, even though if they're like breaking all the American laws. So I'm gonna get to the root of why people believe that.
Why he pulled you over.
This is a good channel, by the way. If you like stuff like this, this is True Science 151.
Before you violate my rights.
Right there. True Science 151 is the channel that has a lot of stuff on it. It's very funny.
Just to let you know.
It doesn't matter if you consent to the citation. You're
All right. I'm going to get to about right over. Okay, we're getting there.
So here we go, guys. He said he clocked me at 73.
And it's the thing, like these Moorish people that believe they can travel without a driver license, they break all, like you would think they're doing a speed limit. I mean, you know, if you guys don't have insurance and registration and license, suspended, got a warrant, what did we do before this technology? Like about 20 years ago, we had a seatbelt on, we had our hand on the damn steering wheel. What's that, 10 to 2? We had seatbelts on. We did the speed limit. When we knew we were riding dirty, chameleon voice, we did the speed limit. You did. We wore a damn tie. We ain't had no damn hoodie on. But these folks be riding dirty and they be really driving dirty. Look at it, 73 miles per hour.
Now, I just got on the highway. I think this is Delroy, Texas. I displayed my Morris credentials. I displayed my.
Okay, so there's no such thing as Morris credentials. There's no such thing as Morris credentials. But again, this is the foolishness we'll get into, and then talk down on FBA, because you have a lot of Moors who are against FBA because our correct position threatens all this nonsense. All this nonsense become more invaluable.
This little public idea, whatever they call it. And how can you clock me? And if you look up the word, people, the entrance of the highway is right there. He said he clocked me at 73. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying this bogus solicitation. See, these bankrupt people are trying to make money some kind of way. Now, I asked him for a supervisor. He said it's not one on duty. What business, which this is, and they finna find out. See, I gave them documentation letting them know who I am. So I hope my elders see this video. But what
He said, I hope my elders see this video. I bet you he has no update of his elder rectifying what happened. What you did, bro, you either paid your ticket or you got an active warrant on yourself.
business doesn't have a supervisor on duty when you're in breach of human rights?
This guy is fucking stupid.
See, I'm not going to argue. See, I'm going to articulate the paperwork through the mail. I'm going to show you how this goes. Because these people are criminals. Okay, they're domestic terrorists, all that, extortionists, racketeers, they're all kind of stuff. Everybody think this is a game until it happens to them. You know, he got these bright ass lights in my face. You see? That's how they roll in Texas. They teach their people to solicit the indigenous people. Now I handed him my Moorish ID as well as the so-called state ID that they colorably, under color of law, got my information under so that I could work. It was no probable cause to pull me over. If I'm speeding, this is why he has lights on it. I wasn't speeding though. This is why you have lights on your vehicle. So when people are speeding, you can blink your lights and they'll slow down.
Excuse me, sir, but what in the doohickey are you talking about? People have lights, so
there's no probable cause to pull me over. If I'm speeding, this is why he has lights on it. I wasn't speeding though. This is why you have lights on your vehicle. So when people are speeding, you can blink your lights and they'll slow down.
Look at this.
What you talking about, Willis?
You don't have to write tickets. This is what you call an Eighth Amendment violation. It's a tort crime. Because just as much as he has a right to do whatever he wants to do, I do too. The planet Earth doesn't belong to one culture of people. We don't regulate anything. He in breach of a treaty, several treaties. Then he didn't call us superior when I requested him. So you're in breach of that role. See, it's a protocol to everything. So this dude's gonna lose his job. He's finna find out.
Well, good luck with that.
He's finna find out who we really are. Because they think it's a game. They think they could just do whatever they.
That's another thing. Like, oh my God, they be asking like the police officers, like their doctrine, and the police officers be like totally confused. They'll say, "Hey, what's your badge number?" And then the police officer will tell it, and then they'll ask for another number that their grand sheet taught them to ask. It's all based on like pseudo-babble. There's another number they'll ask for. I forgot what it's called. Y'all can help me out. They ask for different numbers, like a bank ID or something like that he asked for. And the police officers, when they hear it, they be like, what? And then the Moors, they think because they never heard of it, because it's made up, they think that's confirmation that they don't want to give it to them deliberately. It's like, no, they want to they cannot give it to you. They never heard of that before because it's fake. But the Moors look at that as like confirmation. They don't want to give up some identity to like hide some documents from them from being sued in court for $1 gazillion.
They went to the indigenous people. Well, I'm the right one you pulled over today.
No, hey, bro, don't get it twisted. We're not talking about how people are, how they feel, how good they are as a person. We're just dealing with doctrine. That's all. False doctrine, good doctrine. False doctrine and truth doctrine. This is false doctrine.
This how I go. So he finna find out. And he didn't give me that supervisor, he definitely gonna find out.
Right.
And the reason why I'm standing out my car,
the street,
because these are the papers. These are the papers I showed him. Now, this is the Magna Charta, people.
Yeah, you talking about Pan-Nigerian. Yeah, he sounded like him. It's probably.
He had a copy of this in his hand.
Look at this paper. This is something that they put together using a flyer type of software, and they got it printed out by Staples. And he gave the police officer this as this actually meant something. Luckily he didn't ball it up and throw it away.
This is the Magna Charta, and he's going to violate that right now. So the moment he writes me a ticket, he's going to lose his job.
Okay, so this Moorish individual has been.
He's taught him incorrectly. He's going to find out the truth. Who the heirs is, who want to write tickets and solicit me, which is a violation of the Constitution that they wrote, as well as the Magna Charta. They think it's a joke, but they about to find out. They about to find out. I don't sign tickets. It's always under distress, trespass, and violation of human rights. How can a bankrupt corporation solicit me? See, the only reason why we pull over because we don't want to get human trafficked or shot at.
Hey, Kwame, you should call in because you said you did good against Tariq Nasheed and Dan. I don't believe you did. I watched the whole thing again the other day. I went live with it. And if you want, I want to focus on your conversation and Dan's conversation. Hey, Kwame, are you up to giving your own reaction, your own assessment on your conversation and Dan's conversation when you called in Tariq Nasheed live? Do you want to do that?
See, this is what terrorists do. It's a political reasons. All laws were passed through the political arenas. That's why it's political. So everything they do is.
Yeah, y'all should take Pinky advice when she's talking about this whole situation, Because everything Pinky said, I do, and I hardly ever get pulled over. And when I do, I hardly get a ticket because I'm just polite, honest, and yeah, no, I have my seatbelt on. Oh yeah, I was going a few miles. I'm just whatever. Like, what can you do about it? I'm caught. But I realize and experience, you just be nice to these police officers and just respectful and not trying to yell at them and get over. You'll find yourself out of a ticket. Now, sometimes they're gonna give you a ticket anyway because you really did do something wrong, right? You deserve it. So that's how I look at it. When I'm actually riding illegal, like no seatbelt or didn't put a signal on, I know I did it wrong. So I expect a ticket. So when they give me a ticket, I'm not shocked or disrespected. What I'm trying to do now is not get a ticket.
It's domestic terrorism. You don't get the authority to play God.
Are you stupid or something?
You see, this is our earth, and I'm about to teach them a very valuable lesson in Texas. You mess with the right one this morning. You mess with the right one this morning. It's just the energies in the earth right now. That's all it is. I'm not afraid. I don't really care. But he gonna get me a supervisor. He finna find out just how the law go. I showed him a copy of the Magna Charta, and he act like it was just a piece of paper.
Excuse me, sir, but that Magna Charta that you showed him is just a piece of paper. I'm sorry to burst your bubble,
Right.
but the rest of the
100% piece of
world
paper
isn't obliged to play along with
at
your
all.
little
They
moral
gonna play stupid.
They want to bank on the back of the indigenous people, lie and call us African American and black. I'm not none of that. I'm not gonna play your color game. Now Texas finna get it. They finna feel the law, the wrath of God for real. You see? I hand them the Magna Charta, but you want to write tickets, so you're gonna lose your job. You could play the little
They all say
Monopoly
that.
game all you want to. You're gonna be the one in the doghouse. Mark my word. I'm gonna show y'all when I lay the law down. He don't even know he just pulled over a dignitary, a cleric. He finna find out. And it's always Europeans. Why is there so many police and state troopers that enforce so-called law that's commercial law according to the CFR codes? Why are there so many Europeans that work for these law enforcement agencies? Why you can't find a job somewhere else? It's all solicitation. But it's cool. I'm just speaking to y'all because y'all are my witnesses. You know, because I'm in the middle of nowhere trying to make it working, and you asking me questions. This is a Fifth Amendment violation. You don't get to interrogate me.
Fifth Amendment.
This is the brain on Moorish science. It produces absolute crap. This man is just rambling about.
Hey, when you say Fifth Amendment, you don't have to talk to the police officer. Like when they ask you questions, you can say, like you have to comply because you're driving, like whatever they ask you for. So I always say this in the chat, just real simple. You have less rights. You have less American rights when you're driving a car or vehicle, right? When you're on the road, you got less rights. So when you're walking, a police officer just can't come up to you and ask for ID. That's against your Fourth Amendment. They just can't ask you questions. That's against your Fifth Amendment. Or no, it's not against it, but you have the right to invoke your Fifth Amendments, right? Hey, I want to talk to you. But when you're driving, those rights are compromised when you're in that car or that motorcycle, or truck, on the road, period. If you got a driver license and you're operating a vehicle that requires a driver license, you got less rights. So when they pull you over and they say get out, you got to get out. It don't matter if you ain't do nothing. It didn't matter. You could play that game, but you guys didn't read your manual correctly. When they ask you to get out, you got to get out the damn car. Okay. So, and when they ask the driver, not the passenger, unless the passenger is suspected of a crime, but it's normally the driver that's up for question for violating a traffic law. So the driver, they have to. This is not my opinion. The driver, when he get pulled over for possible driving infraction, the driver, she has to give the credentials, license, registration, insurance. If you don't do that, that can be an arrestable offense. Okay, or if they can't arrest you, let's say no insurance or registration, they're gonna tow it. Okay, so if you don't give up one of those three credentials, you could easily be arrested. You could either be arrested or your car towed, or neither, and then just ticketed. But make no mistake, you got less rights when you're driving. Like, so you can walk down the street and say, I ain't giving you nothing. You can do that, but not driving.
About a bunch of nothing.
And this is the Magna Charta, sir. Yes, sir. You didn't even read it. Can you get your supervisor out here? Can you get your supervisor out here? Can you get your supervisor out? Where's my Morris ID at?
Uh-oh.
Your copy's out here, sir. So, can you show them on the camera what I gave you? I'm not refusing nothing. Did that come out of my mouth? Are you a public servant? Are you a public servant? Aren't you a public servant? Are you not a public servant?
Look, he put it in his vehicle.
Now ask for your superiors.
I mean, listen. At what point do you just give up? I'm sure he get pulled over a lot. I'm sure the result is always the same. My thing is, at what point do you say, okay, let me try something new? You know, if you try something over and over without a change with a different result, you know that's called insanity. So at what point do they say, okay, this ain't working? I know what the Grand Sheik told me, but this ain't working. There has to be another way. Or the Grand Sheik, let me ride with you. You drive my car. Let me see how you get out of this. Because for myself, this never worked, right? So you claim it works. All right, let you drive my car. Let's see how this actually works. Because I need to know now. I need to see it in real time. And there's never been a real-time situation where one of these folks went driving without registration, license, or with a warrant, whatever, or did some illegal infraction, traffic infraction, and demonstrated, hey, look, this is how you do it. See? That never happened. They all either get ticketed, arrested, or towed.
Did you see me sign anything?
Yeah. For one, thank you, Prince Majestic 2.0. For one, Noble Drew Ali never pushed this right here. Noble Drew Ali did not do this. He did not push the old you can travel without license. He never did that. This is new. They got this from the sovereign citizens, which are white racists, right? Domestic terrorists. So they took this in the 1960s from white people, white sovereign citizens in like the 1930s and 40s, the white racist people who hated the federal government. You dig? Because they feel like the federal government laws are unconstitutional. The whole talking points they do now, the right wing and far right. So Noble Drew Ali never taught this.
Did you see me sign anything? What's your police car number? Let me make sure I get this tag number.
Oh shit, he about to pull off on that. I knew that was happening.
That's what this Morris fool gets. I'm glad the officer acted that way. The officer is not there to be debating with you and answering your questions. He simply gave the Morris man, he put the Morris man's ticket in his car and drove off. He's not about to answer any more stupid questions or listen to any more soliloquies from this Morris fool. Go on about your business.
You see me sign anything? You see me sign anything?
Wait, you don't have to, but in some cases, family, you do. So, because signing sometimes is admission of guilt, so you don't have to. But there's sometimes a police officer pull you over, and they have some paperwork that you have to sign. It's not admission. They'll tell you, hey, this is not an admission of guilt, but this is just to acknowledge that I served you, right, with this paperwork. If you do not sign that, that is 100% an arrestable case, right? They can arrest you 100%. But they will tell you, like, before you sign it, you could say, hey, I don't want to sign it because I don't want to admit guilt. And then they'll just give it to you and you just take it and go. Or they'll say, hey, this is not admission of guilt. This is just that you are confirming I gave you this. I served you. And if you say no to that, 100%, I got hella videos, white, black, Hispanic, Chinese, Indian, they all getting dragged out the car. All of them. You have to sign that one. Or that is not arrestable case. That's an arrestable offense. You will be arrested. So he's bragging about not signing. That's okay, because that was not an arrestable offense, obviously.
How you gonna sign me? I ain't signed shit. That boy better go to sleep before they put him to sleep.
Uh-oh. Don't do that. Don't talk like that.
It's wrong.
Oh, the hat came off.
Who government this is? You see me sign something?
But he took a. This is delusion. Okay, so he just took a complete L, and now he's going to twist it around like he won. Look at this. He going to act like he won. This is delusion. Right, Miss Mickey. FBA salute.
Now all these people roll past speeding, and you pull the brown man over.
As you come in, like the
so you tell me
video.
What that ain't. Tell me that ain't soliciting rights.
It ain't that, but it might be racial profiling. So I can kind of say FBA salute. Hold on. When they talk like that, they kind of like that's kind of like in a way undermining like systemic racism, because you're playing with it. Like, bro, it could have truly been that you were racial profile, okay, and you got pulled over. But what can you do about that? If an officer pulls over Miss Mickey, she could have all type of seatbelts. She could have every passenger seatbelt on, driver's side seatbelt on, and the 2 back seatbelts on. If she's not recording that, and that officer says, "Hey, I'm pulling you over because for no seatbelt," how can Miss Mickey win that? Most likely, she's going to end up paying. All right, because racism is real, and racial profiling is real. Okay. Right. For example, I could be walking down the street, and an officer can I'm walking past, let's say I'm walking past some wooded area. An officer knew a bum threw a bottle of beer over there. Okay. He can say, "Stop. Hey, what's your name? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, look, I'm going to give you a ticket for open container." You're like, "Where?" "I got an open container." You're like, "Right here." "That's not mine." "Yes, it is." How you going to beat that unless you're being recorded, right? Body cam of your own, somebody else's device. You're going to get a ticket for open the container. So that's the realization of this world, of the country. And we got to just be mentally prepared for some BS like that to happen, not crash out. And like Pinky said, give them reasons to like beat the hell out of you or unalive you.
Tell me that ain't so. Did I sign something? So where the contract? You can drop anything in here, and I'm gonna drop it back in your lap.
You know you're not. Yes.
Yeah, I'm about to write him up. He's finna lose his job.
They always say that.
He's finna lose his job.
Yeah.
You see me sign something?
Okay.
He know what he had in the sign, and you still wrote the ticket, boy. You better go to sleep. You about to go to sleep.
Yeah, I'm gonna address that next, Kwame. Right after this, I'm gonna address why they believe that. I wish the FBA person I'm here was here, because he mentioned it before. So I'm gonna deal with that next and explain. I'm gonna read why they believe that.
He got the hell on fast. So y'all want to keep playing?
Yeah, he said the officer got the hell out of her fast. Yes, once you started once you started psychobabbling, listen, a lot of police officers already dealt with these Moors and sovereign citizens, the white people. And to them, it's stressful. Like, they don't want to deal with it. Some folks really don't get tickets. I've seen people get pulled over on body cam, or the sovereign citizen, the Moorish person themselves recording it. And that officer realized, I'm dealing with a Moor, a sovereign citizen. That officer let that fool go. They drove away with the fake plates and everything. No insurance. Some officers just ain't going to deal with that. Okay. I got real videos, because I used to do reaction on this all the time. I got real videos where police officers just let them go. Like, the next cop will get you. All right, go. Just go. Because they knew they ain't going to make it far. The next town's going to pull them over. But some officers just ain't beat. Listen, bro, you got it. Just drive out of my county and go to the next county. Because I see your license. You live in the next county or 2 counties down. Okay, you got it. You got it. You're right. The more stuff, you're right. Sovereign citizen, you're right. You can travel. You're right. But he knows he'll be pulled over the next county, the next town. So they're like, man, this guy, just get out of my face.
With the parliament, we ain't no joke. But he finna be. The lie finna be on him. Talking about I'm speeding.
Hey, Forlang, I have a bad reality for you, bro. If you're in this country and don't sign anything, you're still held to the jurisdiction and laws of this country. It don't matter what you sign and don't sign. Go ahead and violate a law, okay, and see what happens to you when they can't find your signature. You still gonna be held to the maximum, whatever they got for you. Okay, so go ahead and not pay taxes. Go ahead and do a PPP loan scam. I don't care what you didn't sign. Watch what happens to you. All right, go ahead and uh, just do something illegally. So do something illegal on purpose in front of a police officer. All right, and see what happens. They're gonna be like, "Yo, did you sign your birth certificate? Hey, Lane, did you sign your social security card? Oh, you didn't sign it? Okay, continue on throwing rocks at the house. You'll see."
You got a
Maneuver.
machine in a vehicle trying to clock people. You tell me that's not a human rights breach.
Okay, so he's just gonna babble for a little more. Let me just say this. Okay, so a lot of them like to talk about the 1790 Sundry Free Moors Act. 1790 Sundry, SNU, Sundry. I say Sundry. Okay, so 1790 Sundry Free Moors Act, 1790 Sundry Free Moors Act. However, tomato, I guess. Okay, so the full name is the Petition of Sundry Free Moors to the South Carolina House of Representatives in 1790. Listen, what happened? 4 individuals, not a whole damn chapter of Moors running around here in America. 4 individuals of African descent, all right? Francis, Daniel, Hammond, and Samuel, who identify themselves as free Moor subjects of the Emperor of Morocco. Okay, they didn't say I'm a foreign national, all this rhetoric that these guys are saying. They said we are free Moors, subjects of the Emperor of Morocco. So they submitted a petition. This is 1790. You know, slavery was legal here still. Okay, there were no, you had free blacks, but you had to prove that, and everybody else was enslaved. Okay, so they submitted a petition to the South Carolina House of Representatives. They requested legal protection as freemen, not freedmen, not the D's not there. Those words matter. So you got free blacks, freed men, and you got free men. So they said they requested legal protection as free men, stating that they were not slaves but Moroccan subjects and had been wrongly assumed to be enslaved due to their African features. Okay, so when people sit here and argue with Tariq Nasheed about the Moors being black, there you go. Just reference the 1790 Sundry Act. Matter of fact, somebody if you're a follower and check into Tariq's like lives, I never catch him live. I'll be knocked out. He's California time. I'm asleep by 11:30, maybe sometimes 10:30. But so I never catch his lives. But if you guys know, please give him this. And I think a lot of y'all do be sharing stuff with him because a lot of times I hear him say something I said, which is great. We're all in this together. I borrow stuff from everybody, even in the chat. But anyway, give this to him so he can stop wasting time. And 1790 Sundry Free Moors Act, 4 men who said they were African, okay, and as a result, they looked at like African slaves and said, no, you got the wrong type of African. Okay. So their argument was they were Moors from Morocco, not enslaved Africans. So now here's the history, Kwame and everybody. Just listen. This is I'm not debating. I'm just giving y'all the history. Okay, why these guys today believe that they can do this? Because it won. So this one, everybody trying to not be Foundation Black American because they know what comes with that. They know stress, oppression, systemic racism, all type of redlining. So nobody wants to be Foundation Black American. They want to be everything else. Okay, so well, guess what? Because they're trying to escape this oppression, this systemic racism. All right. So Morocco had a treaty of peace. That's correct. Morocco had a treaty of peace and friendship with the U.S. 1777. Unofficially, formally ratified, 9 years later in 1786. which should guarantee them protections as foreign nationals. So you will hear a lot of these Moors say they're foreign nationals. They're not. They're not from Morocco. They're not real foreign they're not real foreign nationals. Okay. So now these folks submitted to the courts. So now why do these Moors, why do these modern Moors always lose in court? But the Old Testament wars, they win in court. Okay, watch this. They said they'd been captured in a war and brought to America, but had earned or secured their freedom. Okay, so what did South Carolina do? The South Carolina legislature acknowledged their petition, stating they ought not to be considered as subject to a law of the state made for the government of slaves. In other words, the state exempted them from slave laws because of their foreign status. Okay, they didn't have slave lineage roots like this guy on the left. Okay, and guess what? They were exempt. It wasn't because they were black and look African or the lack thereof. They were not exempt because they're just blessed to be a Moorish person by race, but rather because they were recognized as subjects of Morocco. You see, you got to be recognized as subjects of Morocco. That means that Morocco got to recognize you. Okay, so if you are recognized as subjects of Morocco, Morocco is a foreign power with diplomatic ties. So it's not a one-way conversation. You can't just say, "Hey, I'm from Morocco," and no, they're gonna find out, "Hey, really?" And when they don't see no documentation between you got all these documents, but no documentation showing you have direct ties to Morocco, ever lived there, own anything, any citizenship, not like that, you're done. Okay, so now 4 guys were petitions were seen as correct, right? So now what this does not mean that all black people are Moors because these 4 guys from Africa, but these Moors people will push that. It does not mean all Moors were free or had special legal rights in the U.S. Just these 4 people, just these 4 men. Okay, you can't give me cases where like all the Moors got this off. Some Moors probably got locked right in slavery. Okay, what this does not mean is that Moors had sovereign immunity in America. You could travel without a driver's license. This does not mean foundational Black Americans today, like doing the left, are Moors nationals by default. That's crazy. Okay, it does not mean the Moroccan Treaty gave all African descended people a free status. That's goofy. What it actually means is a few specific individuals from Morocco, not African Americans, not foundational Black Americans, were granted a special exemption from slave laws due to their diplomatic citizenship. So this was already established in advance. They weren't born into it. They didn't make a pledge at some goddamn Moorish science temple. Okay. The U.S. respected foreign treaties, even with African nations. These men were not enslaved African Americans, FBA. They were recognized they were recognized, okay? Recognized, even the locks, they were recognized foreign nationals who had to prove their origin and status. So they had to prove their origin and status. They didn't show frivolous paperwork they concocted from the computer. All right. So this was the first treaty the United States, the Morocco Treaty. This was the first treaty the United States signed with an African or Muslim country. Morocco recognized U.S. independence early and offered maritime protection. Yes. Oh. Okay. Man, where's my fly swatter? Okay, let's go on. Okay, so the treaty, it protected citizens of both countries while traveling. Look at the word traveling. So that means foreign. That means an average American. Keep in mind, it's a treaty between both countries. So can any American citizen go to Morocco and just drive around with no license or no? You had to be recognized as this specialized person, this special person. It's not an inherent right. You're not a Moroccan national by birth. You're not an American national by birth. Are you American national, chat? No, you're not. Okay, and just like the average Moroccan citizen is not a Moroccan national. Okay, so had no racial clause. It applied to nationals of Morocco. Everybody's not in Morocco. It's not anyone claiming more. So just because you claim more doesn't make you a Moroccan national. And the Moor status in America that they teach from Noble Drew Ali is a skin color, or they base their status off skin color or ancestry, right? So now this was never intended to I can't talk. This was never intended to apply to Black Americans, free slaves, or indigenous people living under U.S. jurisdiction. All right. So that's out the way. Now, how about the term white? Because this was something that was talked about. When did white folks become white in America? Okay, so now, during the founding era in the 1700s, the founding fathers, the so-called founding fathers like Jefferson, Washington, etc., referred to themselves and other Europeans as Englishmen, Christians, or freemen more often than white. Okay, so they didn't call themselves European. They said Englishmen, Christians, or freemen, not freedmen, freemen, more often than white. So this was a white person claim, right? But by the late 1600s into the 1700s, in colonial Virginia and other colonies, laws began using the word white. Why? Was it based on their skin tone? It was to distinguish Europeans from Africans and Native Americans in legal terms. So they had to come up with a term to not confuse everybody. Listen, we're white. We don't care who they are. They're not white. And you're not white. You're subjected to our rule, jurisdiction, and things like that. All right. The example is the Virginia Slave Codes in 1705 that Dr. Claude Anderson spoke about earlier when I played Paranomics. Okay. So in those Virginia Slave Codes in 1705, explicitly referred to white Christians versus Negroes and Indians. So the term Indian is there, the term Negro is there, and the term Christian is there, and they're separate. Negroes, you got Indians, you got Christians, all three separate groups. This is when white became a legal status tied to land ownership, freedom from slavery, the right to bear arms, vote, testify in court. And this is why the Moors of America are so caught up on the term white, because they don't understand we're in 2025. You can own land, you're free from slavery, and you got the right to bear arms, vote, testify in court. But they're stuck on this 1705 slave code that deprive us from. Right. So they're like 300 years removed from reality. So by the time U.S. independence, 1776, white was already an official race category, but mostly meant Anglo-Protestant people, English, Scott, Irish, Dutch. Scots, Irish, Dutch. Okay. Old immigrants. Now, you know what? I'm going to stop right there. I'll talk about this on another live. I'm going to stop right there. All right. So let's move on to the next thing. Right here. Where Tariq was talking to a per capita Peckerwood. Now, I love the per capita argument. You dig? Because per capita, so white supremacists, right-wing, alt-right, far-right, white people like to cherry pick when they use per capita and cherry pick when they use the raw numbers. Okay. And again, they cherry pick it based on which one supports their argument. So we said welfare. So if we made an argument, hey, welfare, that's mainly white folks on that, they would then say per capita. Okay. But when raw numbers fit their argument, they would excuse per capita and they will say just the raw numbers. All right. So that's their argument that they rely on. And you got tethers and black coons who borrow the same talking points, but they got it from daddy. All right. So let's listen.
In your household, and you sound like a strong leader and you sound well spoken. I'm not going to take any shots at you at all. But like
thanks, bro.
There is facts that like some of this stuff.
So I gotta help my peoples out with they're trying a YouTube channel. So I told them 2:00 I will be available to help them get started. So I got about 22 minutes, family, and I'll be back on once my son's sleeping around 3:00, 3:30. I'll be back on.
Hip hop culture isn't good, and like it's an FBI statistic that like black people make up 13% of the population, 55%.
That's the per capita nonsense.
You know what I mean? Okay, so you heard them. See, now what I don't like, yeah, it is nonsense, but we got to be able to debunk it, because what we don't want to do is seen as discarding their quote unquote facts, because then they're gonna say, hey, well, you didn't address it. So I don't like to just shift. I don't like to just push it aside as nonsense. I like to just cook it. All right. So he said 13% black folks, Foundation Black Americans make up 13% of the population, but they are responsible for 55% of the murders in America. So now all of a sudden, we're doing raw numbers. All right. See, they pick and choose per capita and raw numbers. Cool. Just one more time.
Stuff in hip hop culture isn't good, and like it's an FBI statistic. That
now this is an average white supremacist talking point.
Like black people make up 13% of the population, 55%.
That's the per capita nonsense. That's the per capita nonsense.
Yeah, it is a per capita, and it's not a 13%. It's probably 0.5% that are committing the murders that are in the inner cities.
You can stretch that stat out across every single racial line, right?
Yeah, definitely. But when you look at the tier numbers,
when I ask you, right, how many? What's the percentage of white people that murder each other?
I mean, probably a good percent too, right? But when you look at it,
it's actually similar to ours. Okay,
94% rate. So 94% of all white murders are committed by white people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what the stat is for Asian people?
Well, probably not that. Probably way lower.
No, it's higher.
I like Dan. Dan because his name Dan. He
I don't know that, and I'm not versed on that.
No, but I'm trying to get you to understand. This is the FBI saying this is not my words. This is coming from the feds. The same stat that you use to describe black people is the same stats that the feds have. Basically, actually, it's at a higher rate for those groups. And you know why?
And I didn't use it to describe black people. I used it as an actual statistic because that's what it is.
No, I'm giving you an example of how stats.
All right, so now let me explain. I don't think Dan's going to be able to do that. He's going to go somewhere else. Let me explain. They misread. They got it from Jared Taylor, right? They misread the FBI stat that says 13%. Black folks make up 13% of the population and will be commit 55% of the murder, like total murder. Like that means all the murders committed in the country, we are responsible for 55%. Well, if that's the case, there should be 55% less black people on Earth, on the planet in America. Okay, because we only kill each other. And what Dan was trying to explain to him, white people only kill white people. Hispanics only kill white Hispanics. Asians only kill Hispanics. You only kill your demographic, the people who you're around. You only rob the people you're around. You only steal from the people you're around. You only defraud and scam the people you are. You only sell drugs and use drugs from the people you are around. So now the lie, the misrepresentation of that stat is that's fake. We don't make up 55% of murders. That's a lot of people. You dig? So like I said, either we got no longer 43 million black people. We got now 20-something million black folks, or the white population is cut in half, because that means we killed half of somebody. So, but the stat is a lie. What's actually going on is we make up 55% of the arrest for murder. Okay, but we're not convicted. We're not 55% convicted. So, for example, Diddy was just arrested for RICO. That's going to go into an FBI stat. But was he charged and convicted for RICO? No, I'm sorry. Was he convicted for RICO? No. But he's going to go in the stat for black men being charged and arrested for RICO. So white supremacists, what they did was they twisted that and they said on the fly, again, these are just gotcha questions, gotcha facts, right? Because they know on average, we don't know this lie. So they'll say, hey, man, did you know 50% of black people are convicted of murder? But it's wrong. We're arrested for murder, but not convicted of, because we're arrested more than anybody for the weirdest racial profile and discriminatory things possible. But that don't mean we're convicted of it. So we're convicted for murder of our own, no different, same rates as white folks and their own and everybody else. Okay, that's what Dan was going to, but Dan didn't explain that part. I just said the white dude is mixing up, he's purposely misrepresenting a stat. We're 55% arrested, not 55% convicted. Our convictions are similar to whites and everybody else for murder. So that's a lie. Well, let's play the video.
Yeah, but what I'm saying though is of the 13%, it's probably only 0.5% that are committing the murders.
The thing about it is what you're missing is, right, that's a per capita stat. Do you know what per capita is, right?
Yeah, I know what per capita is.
Gotcha. It's a way to manipulate numbers.
Yeah, because there's definitely more white people in the country.
So they manipulate the numbers with this per capita nonsense. Like, come on, you look.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that that black people are killing white people. That's not what I'm saying.
Hey, listen, the more y'all show up in my lives and the more because remember, white supremacists and tethers, like they are clout chasers and coons. So the more live viewers I get, when I get to the 200, 300, 400, you're going to see all these guys call in. And my research is different than most folks. I take this stuff serious, like serious. So that's why on the fly, where you want to go? Where you want to go? And I'm pretty much well-versed wherever they go. Not everywhere, but a lot of places they go, I'm like well-versed at because I already studied it in advance. You dig?
I'm saying black people are killing black people.
No. I'm telling you white people are killing white people.
Right, Miss Mickey.
Yeah, I mean, and all that I'm saying though is that I think that is.
Yes, that's another thing. Kendrick, Jegna, the stats themselves are questionable, right? These are not absolute stats. You dig? But even if they are, it still ain't telling a story from the reader. The reader is manipulating what he's reading. Like I said, it does not say convictions. It says arrests. That's the lie. They're saying convictions and they're implying convictions. And when we respond to that gotcha question, we're thinking they're saying convictions. And so we know it's false. So what we'll do is we'll automatically say the stat is wrong, but we really don't know. So we're just dismissing his evidence without knowing whether it's true or not. And when you do that, you become one of them because they'll dismiss something that we bring up and not knowing it's true or not. So what I like to do is know whether it's true or not. So when they ask me or say it, I either concede or debunk and educate like I normally do in debate.
Due to like negative influences.
Yeah,
like
but you just said you
and you in your
you're
house,
not
you might do
from the
something
culture,
different.
though.
But in the inner cities, from the slums in Chicago and Detroit and stuff like that, like these kids
I used to live in both of these places. So
yeah,
I know specifically what we're talking about.
And is there not murders going on? Like, are you comfortable raising
there's
families?
murders in every single.
Yes, you see, so Dan kind of don't know. That's why he fit into the murders. But they're not murders. They're arrests for murders. But again, they're acquitted or the charges are lessened, and because there's no proof of murder, so they might lessen it to just tampering with evidence or something else. Maybe they found like some weed on them. Okay, let me charge you weed. But and you'll see a lot of this. Y'all watch First 48. How many guys get arrested on First 48 for murder, but then get let go? You dig? And they find the right guy and convict that guy. So, but all those guys that's arrested and let go for the murder, those guys are added to the stat. But you see, there's the First 48. It'll say this person was not convicted or charged. They were let go. It tells you. But he was arrested for murder, so that goes to that stat. And this is probably they do it on purpose. This is why, because your arrest record does not go away. Even though you were not charged, that arrest record is still there. So some companies are slick. Some companies don't just rely on convictions. They will ask, have you been arrested in the last 10 years or 7 years or 5 years, 3 years? You dig? When you say yes, that's it. Like they don't care why, they don't care about systemic racism. They're like, all right, I hear you.
Single city. That's kind of the core. That's kind of what happened as a murder. That's why you have, homicide units in these cities.
Yeah, in every big major city, but there's not murders across all the different rural.
Yes, it is.
There's literally murder every single day.
Right. He's wilding.
Yeah, in America, but not in every single town all across America. There's plenty of places that are totally safe.
There are murders all
even
over.
If you're familiar with the Chicagoland.
But even that is BS because white folks are normally spread out. They're not condensed like we are on average. Like on average, we live in cities when we're condensed. Okay, and we're in poor environments. Like we're in environments where resources are limited and scarce. We rely on a lot of government assistance, and job opportunities are not there. Loan opportunities are there. So like we're kept in this bubble where tensions are high, stress is high, depression is high. So yes, that's going to turn into criminal activities. That's a fact. That's for anybody. That's why when white folks live in our neighborhoods, in the hood, you want to say, or Indians or Africans, what do? They end up doing criminal activity too, because it's not about we influence them. It's the influences that's already there influence them. So the same influences that influence us is there for them too, because negative influences don't discriminate. Yes. Okay.
Area, you know, like there's not a lot of murders happening in Naperville or in Tinley Park.
Okay, do you realize,
Oak
right?
Lawn,
I think it was in Iowa not too long ago. There was a kid, a 20-year-old kid, set some bunch of.
All right, so I want to leave it on that note right there. But I'm glad I explained it the way I explained it. I hope you guys watch this back. Be ready for these rebuttals against these white supremacists, tethers, and coons. You dig? And I'll try to come back live about 4 p.m. in a real way to talk about real things in real time. And Kwame, if Kwame is interested, Kwame, let me know now, bro. I didn't read it, but let me know now. Are you interested? This is Dan. This is the same guy you spoke to. Kwame, are you interested in going over your discussion with Dan? Okay. Dan, are you interested in going over your, I'm not Dan, Kwame, are you interested in going, Lavanya, peace. Kwame, are you interested in going over your discussion with Dan, the guy who was just talking? That's a yes or no. Dan? Kwame? Okay, good. All right. So Kwame, I'm gonna guess I'll be live again around anywhere from 3:30 to 4:30. So hey, set aside that time and call up, chat, peace, like the video. We got good likes. Like the video, and also this is Saturday. If you're feeling charitable, the Cash App pop any amount. I don't discriminate. I'm not there. I'm not Dr. Umar. If you send $1, I'm not gonna say, hey, make it 10. If you donate $5, I'm not gonna say make it 500. Whatever is sent is appreciated. It's going to something good, something like food or something like that. Peace.